Right, welcome to Sheep Farm and another podcast. And today we've got a really exciting guest for us because he was the first guy that interviewed us on our journey into this podcasting world. We've got Mark Devlin with us, author of The Musical Truth Volumes 1, 2 and 3 and the non-fiction book as well. You're a pretty, what would you say now, repeat author. What would you say? What would you say you are now in your author world, Mark?
Yeah, hello guys. So author is my main job title now. I've had many over the years. You know, many years ago I would have put DJ as my job title. Then I became a private hire driver, but Convid put paid to all of that when people stopped traveling to airports. Then I suppose I was an eBay trader because as soon as I lost my driving job, I was like, shit, what am I going to do to pay the bills now? And I started flogging a load of my old 90s hip-hop vinyl albums, which I didn't particularly want to get rid of, but it's the only thing I could think of to keep the family fed. And then very soon after that, in early 2020, my career took off as a YouTuber, and a lot of people started discovering the videos that I was putting out, commenting on the insanity of what you call the nonsense. And a lot of people just gravitated towards my YouTube channel, and many of them were like, oh, well, he's not some Johnny-come-lately that's just sprung up. This guy's been around for 10 years, putting books out about the music industry. So that kind of sparked a new interest in my books, and it's enabled me to move into being a full-time author now. So I've just put out Musical Truth Volume 3, and there's a lot of interest in that. It's sparking interest in the earlier two books and in the novel, and I'm now able to eat off of the back of these books, which is a very fulfilling experience.
It's fantastic. Yeah. That's a dream come true. Brilliant.
Did you show any budding insight at school that you were going to be an author?
I always enjoyed writing, expressing myself that way. And one of my early jobs, very few people know this about me, but one of my early jobs in the early 90s, you and me are a similar age, Dom. You're a year older than me. But in the early 90s, I had a day job as, first of all, a reporter, then a deputy editor, and then an editor of a group of trade magazines dealing with office supplies and stationery. So I was writing about how to effectively market a stapler and a ring binder and stuff like this.
And if you can make that sound exciting.
Exactly.
You can make Lady Gaga sound amazing.
That's exactly the point, yeah. So I did that job for about 7 years. And by the end of it, my DJ career was starting to take off. I was getting a lot of club bookings off the back of the radio show that I was doing at the time on Galaxy Radio in Bristol. So I was able to give up that day job and move into DJing. But I've always enjoyed expressing myself in writing. And I actually put out a book early on called Tales from the Flip Side, which I self-published in early 2007. And again, very few people know about that book because I don't promote it. I don't ever really talk about it. Reason being that back in 2007, I was in a very debased state of consciousness. So I hadn't woken up yet. I was still living in the Matrix. I was starting to wake up around about that time, but I was still entrenched in that mainstream way of thinking. And that comes across in the book. So it's a collection of amusing anecdotes from the DJ world and, you know, interesting experiences that I'd been through up to that point. So that book is still out there somewhere. But
it's all part of the journey, isn't it? That waking up is part of the process,
exactly.
Isn't it? No matter when it is.
Exactly. So that was actually my first book, not Musical Truth Volume 1. But it's like one of those undiscovered nuggets buried away deep in the confines of history somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm impressed by anyone who can even write a book about anything, to be fair, because I love reading books. But
yeah, it's on my list because I, like you, Mark, I like writing. I mean, I used to write songs and poetry and stuff like that, and totally uneducated as well. But yeah, I like writing. But it's time.
Well, you write the flockers, don't you? They're written.
They're all written.
I keep saying to Dom, he could put them together into almost like a reference book. A lot of the Meet the Flocker stuff, take the bullet points and put them into a reference book.
Oh, well, your shows are going to stand as historical documents in years to come of these times.
Imagine that for a thought fire.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I know. But the level of research you do into these flockers, you know.
Oh, he goes mental. He goes mental, Matt.
Yeah.
He calls me Raymond Babbitt.
He'll just be going, we've got to do this thing because I'm just going too. It's going too far now. We've got to do it today. We've got to do it tomorrow. When are you free this week? When are you free?
Yeah, and your shows are long as well, like 3 hours, and 3.5
Yeah,
hours.
they could be longer. I'd bring them back in because they could go longer.
He says we've got to do it now, otherwise it's going to go on forever. Those are his exact words every time.
Yeah.
So what was the inspiration for the first Musical Truth? Obviously, you're going through this wake-up process, and you've got all this information coming at you. What sort of, like me, it's sort of like a natural gateway that opens, and you think, well, I'll just do that. Is that what happens to you?
Well, the inspiration for the first book was the 5 years worth of research that I'd done up to that point. So I kind of woke up in earnest in 2010. And immediately, when I came to discover that the world was actually nothing like we spent our entire lives being told it is, I wanted to delve into researching the true nature of the music industry because I'd been a part of it. And it fascinated me. And I was looking at sites like Vigilant Citizen back in those days. And I was watching a lot of YouTube videos where people were breaking down the symbolism in the music videos that were around at the time. So it was kind of Miley Cyrus, Katy Perry, Beyonce, Rihanna, Kanye West, Britney Spears, those kind of artists. And initially, I was naive enough to think that all this dark occult symbolism and the mind control frequencies and all this sort of stuff was something that had just come in the 2000s. But as I continued the research, I found myself going further and further back in time. And I was like, damn, all this stuff was around in the 90s. And as we were just saying off air there, a lot of hip-hop acts who I had thought were outside of the agenda were actually caught up in it. Because I used to think the music that I played as a DJ on the radio and in clubs in the 90s was quite innocent. Certainly, it was better quality. The production methods, the overall sound of it, many of the lyrics were far superior to all the satanic garbage that we've got now. But as I researched it, with an open mind, with a mature, higher mind, I realized that so much of that stuff was pushing agendas as well. Specifically, within hip-hop, anyone of our kind of generation that listened to rap and hip-hop in the 90s would know about the so-called East Coast, West Coast beef, which was entirely manufactured, entirely contrived. And the figureheads for this psyop were Notorious B.I.G., Biggie Smalls, in New York, managed by Sean Puffy Combs, Puff Daddy, Bad Boy Records. And they were being pitched against Tupac over on the West Coast, part of Death Row Records with Suge Knight as the front man for that operation. And it turns out the whole thing was a dialectic. So people were being asked to choose between West Coast or East Coast. Who's your favorite artist? Do you prefer Biggie or Tupac? And it was the classic tactic of both sides being controlled by the same forces, which we've seen so often. But I bought into that at the time, didn't realize it was a psyop. And it was only all those years later when I look back and I realized, well, that whole thing was just completely artificial. And it resulted in, supposedly, the deaths of Tupac and Biggie. But through my research, I've got some doubts as to whether Tupac actually died when we're told he did in September 96. I do feel that Notorious B.I.G. Biggie Smalls was murdered and did die in March 97. But I've got some question marks about Tupac, and I wonder whether his supposed murder was used to set the scene for the actual murder of Biggie Smalls 6 months on, with complete complicity from Sean Puffy Combs, Puff Daddy, very dark, very sinister character when you get into it. So I've gone off at a tangent there, which is probably going to happen a lot in this show. But yeah, I found myself going further and further back in time in the research. And before you know it, I was back in the 1950s at the very inception of the industry. And I was seeing all the same signs of infiltration and control and nefarious activities all those decades ago.
Go on, Chris.
No, I was just going to say, what do you think the point of the Biggie Smalls shenanigans was? Just left, right,
control every time, innit?
Yeah.
Was it just a lot of to get people arguing, divide and conquering, or what was the point?
More traumatic, negative.
Trauma, yeah.
Everyone
used to talk about it at the time, I remember.
Yeah, it's sowing confusion, sowing dissent, sowing negative feelings among different demographics, and we've seen this so many times.
And a load of record sales out of it as well.
Well, yeah, that as well. But, you think of the Beatles and the Rolling Stones that were put out there in the 1960s. They were supposedly rivals, but when you get down to it, they were actually friends.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of cross-pollination between different personnel between those two groups. And I feel that they were both used to push social engineering agendas in the 1960s, as it suited their controllers to have them do. So that was getting two different kind of demographics, because the Beatles appeared more to, they were pitched as nice boys, nice lads that you could introduce to your mother, that your auntie would like. It's nice, innocent love songs. They were basically a boy band at the time.
Yeah.
And then the Rolling Stones were a bit more edgy, a bit more dangerous. They were appealing to that group that didn't like the Beatles. But both sides were controlled by the same forces. And then if you apply that to the East Coast, West Coast beef in the 90s, both sides were controlled by the same forces, but it was much more intense. It was obviously a lot of violence. There were a lot of murders that took place in the wake of those events, actually, between different people in LA and New York, because they took this whole East Coast, West Coast rivalry so seriously, it led to so many deaths.
Well, man, I never thought of that, actually.
In volume one of the book, I go into how the controllers of the music industry have always held a very special breed of contempt for people of color.
Yeah, definitely.
Specifically black people. So this also crops up in volume 3, where I've got a long list of the large number of soul singers and musicians of one type or another who have died very early, in their 20s, in many cases, 30s, 40s, 50s, but just way too young. And then when you apply that to the hip-hop world, the body count among rappers is absolutely ridiculous and out of all proportion to the genre. And you get more of that in the rap and hip-hop world than in any other genre. And to my thinking, the controllers have such contempt towards black people that they've really done a number on them through the mechanisms of the music industry. And the East Coast, West Coast thing was showing absolute contempt and hatred towards the followers of that genre. And it's my belief that they built hip-hop up in the 90s to be a very powerful force that really was inspiring people and put out some classic, wonderful material, only to bring it down and collapse it in the 2000s. Because that genre has descended into the gutter, into the cesspit, more than any other. You listen to what passes for so-called rap and hip-hop now, and it's complete satanic garbage that I can't even stand to listen to.
Yeah. Me and Dom are big soul fans, and I don't think soul music even exists as it used to do, does it?
I don't think any music does.
No. I mean, you had this term R&B. When I was coming up as a DJ in the 90s, you had this term R&B, which kind of replaced what was there before. It used to be called swing beat, New Jack Swing. So music...
I used to like New Jack Swing.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, Guy. We went to see him.
Teddy Riley, all those productions. Bobby Brown even.
Yeah. We saw him in Manchester.
Yeah, even Bobby Brown.
Yeah, Bobby Brown was good when he started as well.
Yeah.
So New Jack Swing drew on earlier musical influences from the soul and jazz era and even barbershop quartets. And it was fusing that with hip-hop culture and hip-hop styles. And then swing beat kind of merged into a term that was known as R&B, where there was hip-hop soul for a while, which was personified by Mary J. Blige and R. Kelly, who we don't talk about anymore. and
we might do in this show.
Yeah, well, we might, yeah. Groups like SWV and TLC and En Vogue, these sort of people.
I was always confused with the R&B thing, because R&B to me, I always thought was like Blues Brothers music growing up.
Yeah, well, it stands for rhythm and blues. And in the 1960s, it had an entirely different connotation. So R&B back in the day was Aretha Franklin and Marvin Gaye and Sam Cooke and these kinds of artists. But
I had to subscribe to the Rhythm and Blues R&B magazine.
Yeah, you did,
Blues magazine.
Yeah. I used to write for Blues and Soul magazine, actually.
And Blues and Soul.
Blues and Soul used to get as well.
Blues and Soul's it well,
yeah. I had a day job on Blues and Soul in 2007 before it went down the toilet.
I bet that was your dream job.
It was
at that time, wasn't it?
It really was. It lasted for 6 months, and then Blues and Soul went out of business. It is still out there as bluesandsoul.com online, but it's entirely different personnel running it to what used to be the case. Blues and Soul ran for about 40 odd years. But anyway, R&B became this term that referred to the soul music of the day. And it had its roots in these earlier styles, but it had this kind of hip-hop edge to it, and it was very contemporary. But that term now is completely meaningless. R&B, I mean, you'll hear Lady Gaga classified as R&B.
And Ollie Murs.
And Ed Sheeran. The other year, at the Robo Awards, Music of Black Origin, Ed Sheeran swept the board and picked up bloody 4 awards. And his music...
Maybe it's albino.
Oh, my God.
It might be albino.
You know, it doesn't matter what he is. There's nothing black about his music in terms of the influence and style at all. And it's obvious they were just trying to push Ed Sheeran at the time by giving him every bloody award going, so people would get familiar with it.
And it's just a piss take, isn't it? It's a piss take because he's a ginger-haired, drip white, same complexion as lard-looking character
with creepy eyes.
His eyes are so creepy. Oh. But that's all right if he was singing some, inspired rhythm and blues music or some soul music.
Simply read some soul music, didn't they? There's some soul music. Yeah. Whether they're a soul band or not.
What is going on with his Ed Sheeran's eyes?
Now he's singing about sausage rolls at Christmas with Elton John and nonsense like this.
I don't know one of his songs, to be honest with you.
He went through a breakdown, I think, didn't he? He went through a bit of a breakdown. He was suffering from anxiety. He wouldn't leave his mansion at some point.
Right.
So maybe there's been some kind of programming going on there.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me. I did a bit of research into his family, and it turns out his dad is connected to the United Nations, and he curated an exhibition for Prince Charles.
Shock and horror.
So now we know why Ed Sheeran is being pushed over and above any other artist out there. It's because of his family connections, and this is always the case.
Because you don't know who spoke to who behind the scenes, do you? You don't know what's happened, what they've done as a favour to warrant. Because let's face it, he can play a guitar, which I'm sure millions of people can, and he can sing. He plays, to me, he looks like a busker. Yeah, I'm not knocking buskers. There's some good, talented buskers, but that's what he looks like. He's nothing special to me.
If he's been trained from birth, they could train him to anything. Fine, could be a trapeze artist.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing with many of these lifetime actors that are put out there into one industry or another, whether it's the music industry or Hollywood films or television, they get the very best training from the very earliest age because it's been decided that they're going to have a role on the public stage. So they go to all these foundations and these institutions that teach these art forms. And many of them know from an early age what they're going to be. In my books, I've included comments from Jazz Coleman, the frontman of Killing Joke, who says that when he was a young lad of about 4 or 5, he was told he was going to be a famous singer in a rock group. And it goes back to what Boris Johnson's nanny said about a time working in the Johnson family. She said young Boris was told from when he was a toddler that one day you're going to be Prime Minister of the UK. So these things are all pre-planned.
And if you think about Ed Sheeran's parents, like you were saying, is it, when your first born is born or whatever, we're going to train him from birth and he's going to be a massive star. There you go. That's your reward for whatever you did.
That's right. And money's
that's your sacrifice for whatever you did.
Yeah.
Because it could work both ways, couldn't it? Because it's quite inverted as well. He could be just a controlled, I'm sure he is. And his dad signed a contract, or his mum, in some way, shape or form. But, I mean, the worship of mediocrity, that's what we're talking about, isn't it? Where people are being told to worship Ollie Murs, Spice Girls, whoever it might be. None of them can sing, and yet you're told these are singers. And that's the ultimate.
Then they give him a few years and they drag him out as like this veteran pop star.
But I mean, honestly, in 40 or 50 years, who from today's music world do you think is still going to be celebrated? Whose name is still going to be remembered? Here we are talking about the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and the Doors and Pink Floyd, all these decades on. And controlled as these groups may have been and pushing agendas, it was still great music, and it was timeless music. And that's why people still love their music today. But who are you going to be able to say that about, even in 10 years? Do you think people are going to be, in 2032, if we're still all here, looking back on 2022 and saying, oh, Ed Sheeran, he was great. I really miss him. His songs really spoke to me in a deeply profound way.
Yeah. And really uplifting.
Cardi B had so much to say about
that girl's horrible.
About the social conditions of the time. I really miss Cardi B's commentary.
She's horrible, isn't she? That girl, Cardi B. She just talks like Oh,
Who's the
makes
guy
me
who was
crazy.
singing on New Year's Eve? The ginger head chap, with all the tattoos.
Oh,
I
God knows.
don't know what his pronoun is. It was singing with Elton John. Oh, I forgot his
Was
name.
Ed Sheeran? Wasn't it?
No, it wasn't Ed Sheeran. It was a gay guy. Strange looking character.
Yeah, Ed Sheeran.
Looked like a hybrid.
Strange looking
Yeah,
ginger guy with creepy eyes.
No, because he had tattoos all up his neck. And
All right.
I'm going to have to find his name.
I think
now.
I know what you mean now.
I'll
Though,
check
I think
him.
you know what you mean. I can see his face.
Um,
Another one that got hijacked as well, Matt, is the jazz move. I like jazz, old jazz, and
Right.
the face of Jazz FM now is that little weird orange guy. What's his name?
Ed Sheeran.
No, he's always,
Ed Sheeran. Yeah.
he's a little weird little guy, and he's always got loads of fake tan on, so he's always orange, and he's married to a really tall supermodel. It's really creepy.
Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's him. Donald Trump.
I forgot his bloody name as well. Now me and Dom are useless, aren't we? Go on,
Useless.
sorry, carry on, Matt.
Ollie Alexander. That guy's
Oh, I've
called.
never heard of him.
You should look him up.
Oh, right. Okay. With the
Wonderful.
jazz thing that you just mentioned there, I've got an interesting story that forms part of my presentations concerning Thelonious Monk.
Yeah, I like Thelonious Monk.
And for a time,
Oh,
Thelonious Monk
did.
used
He
to
did.
date one of the Rothschilds. Did you know that?
I did know that. I did know. Do you know? Funnily enough, Matt, I heard that on the radio. They were talking about Thelonious, and they said it, and I was like, "What?" And I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were
He
discussing
dated
it.
Panonica Rothschild of that family. And
What do they do again? I've forgotten.
who's that? The Rothschilds?
The Rothschilds, yeah.
Well,
What
they
do they do again?
They just
Yeah,
do
yeah.
wine and country houses, don't they? I think.
Yeah, just give the country houses away to
Philanthropists.
Philanthropists.
They're
that's
deeply caring people with big hearts, just like Bill Gates. You know, the only reason he does all these vaccines is because he cares. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
But anyway, Thelonious Monk dated Nika Rothschild for a while back in the 1960s. So what's that all about?
I don't know.
I mean, best guess is that she served as some kind of handler to him.
Well, if all the other musicians are controlled, as it literally is proved now, isn't it? I reckon to a level, jazz can't have escaped it, can it? Because jazz is big in a lot.
It wouldn't have done. No genre has. One of these days, I'm going to have to delve into classical music. You know, I'm not into classical at all, but I know there's going to be stuff to be found there. I think if you take it all the way back to the days of Beethoven and Mozart, you're going to find Freemasonry absolutely everywhere.
Written all over it.
If they're famous for a reason, aren't they?
If you think about going back to black music, if you think about most of the black music stems from gospel church music, and then stems back from, I suppose, singing in cotton fields,
starting
singing in cotton fields or whatever.
Songs,
the chain gangs or whatever you want to call it.
That's right.
And if you think
weirdly, we're part of that, aren't we, Dom? Because we've got 25% of our family is Black American, and my cousin who came and stayed here, he said that our family migrated from the deep south up to Chicago, and he knew everything about jazz,
which is why we like Chicago House, probably. Even though
you
I
like
didn't know
Chicago House, and I was like jazz, and I was living in Yorkshire, and for some reason I picked up on jazz and really started liking it, and I just could not understand why. And then we ended up getting
your DNA, mate.
I know we got in touch with our family in America. And my cousin stayed here, and I was playing him the most obscure jazz songs I knew, and he knew every single one of them. Every one of them. And I said to him, "Have you got any jazz music? Because I've got a trumpet in my attic that I've never played. Always meant to play it, never been able to play it." And I said, "Have we got any jazz musicians in our family?" And he just started reeling them off.
You know your trumpet, Chris?
Yeah.
Is it the size of your nostrils? The end of it?
Thanks for that, Don. Horrible.
I've always got to get the nostrils in.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We're going to have some nostril gags. Yeah.
Always got to get them in.
Sorry, Matt, my rude older brother.
Yeah. Do you think that these people actually know? I mean, I'm sure some of them do, but when you go through, like, I'll use Blair as a prime example. I wonder if he actually knew that he was related to Charles, King of Scotland, James, I think it is, and then back to Charlemagne, all the way through his life. Do you think same with these musicians? Do you think a lot of them know this? Or
yeah, I think they do. I think they're schooled in it from an early age, and they're told that they're going to go into these fields, these professions, and they train up ready for it. And it's kept from the people. It's never openly spoken about in interviews, but it's always possible to do the research and find out who these people are. I mean, I seem to mention him in every chat that I do, but Dave McGowan, who wrote Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon.
So we should mention him because
brilliant book.
We should keep him alive.
I give props to Dave in just about every bloody interview I do now. But his work so inspired what I'm doing. And it was it's a very simple method of research that he did. He basically took all these prominent musicians from the mid to late 1960s, from the counterculture era, and did some digging into who their parents were, who their families were. And all this information was available in online biographies, newspaper articles, interviews, obituaries. You find out a lot from obituaries. And he just pieced it all together and put all those puzzle pieces together. And the big picture emerged, which was that entire scene was populated by musicians whose families were steeped in aspects of military intelligence and the army, the navy, the defense department, aspects of government, aspects of academia, Ivy League universities, secret societies, mystery schools. And it presents a very different picture of who these people really were and what that scene was really all about. And that's inspired me to do lots of digging of my own and kind of add to what Dave started and presented. And now I think we can all understand what the music industry has been all about these past several decades so much better.
It's almost impossible to deny it now, isn't it? I mean, you brought it all to England and started doing the English guys as well, didn't you? And it's almost impossible to... if you spend 10 minutes, it's impossible to deny it, I think.
In the 60s or 50s, they allowed talented people to make music, write music. They still controlled them at a level like Motown controlled them. And then it got to a point where these people were getting that big, like your Princes, your Michael Jacksons, and even your George Michaels, that they sort of couldn't control it. And especially when they started taking Sony to court and trying to get out of contracts, that caused a problem for them then, I think. That's where Simon Cowell pops his hamster facing to proceedings. And he's been brought in probably to control the whole narrative of people like him anyway, I think, because these people were becoming too powerful. So they had to control it.
Yeah. I heard someone said, it might have been you, Matt, that all those 80s famous ones, they're all dead, aren't they? Are they George Michael Jackson? There's only Madonna left.
That's right, because Madonna plays the game. Madonna is a lifetime actor. Again, bloodlines, you look into Madonna, and on her mother's side, she's cousins with Celine Dion, Ellen DeGeneres, and Lady Gaga. So you realise that none of them emerged just by accident. There's this French-Canadian bloodline that goes back many, many generations. And when you really expand it out and look at the family tree, Madonna turns out to be related to George Bush, Tom Hanks, Brad Pitt, all kinds of ridiculous connections there. They're all interrelated. Yeah, and you look at the big stars of the 1980s, arguably the biggest soloist vocalists in the 1980s would have been Michael Jackson, Prince, George Michael, Whitney Houston, Madonna. 4 out of those 5 are dead.
Not particularly old either.
Exactly. They all died in their 50s.
And not only that, you'd expect people with that sort of amount of cash to get good medical care and have a good life and have dietitians and things like that and not be in a position where they're going to die early.
Yeah, Whitney Houston turns up dead in a bathtub at 48. Prince turns up dead in an elevator at 57. Michael Jackson turns up dead in his home at the hands of his physician, so we're told, at the age of 50. George Michael turns up dead in bed on Christmas Day, age 53.
After a recent operation and a visit to hospital.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
In Belgium.
But this thing about these artists going up against their record companies, obviously George Michael and Michael Jackson had beef with Sony, their record label. Incidentally, let me just try and get this right. Michael Jackson died on the 25th of June, which just happens to be George Michael's birthday. How crazy is that?
It's just strange, isn't it?
I know that there's all these synchronicities and all this numerology going on. It's endlessly fascinating. Yeah. And then you've got Prince, who went up against Warner Brothers, and we saw what happened there. But there's an earlier example of this dynamic going back to the 1960s, which I talk about in the new book. And it concerns 3 very prominent soul artists of that time who had reportedly decided to form their own music publishing and distribution company so that they could take control of their own affairs away from the major record labels. be in control of their own publishing and royalties, and own their own master tapes. And the three artists in question were James Brown, Sam Cooke, and Otis Redding. Sam Cooke and Otis Redding didn't last very long.
No.
Very soon after this, in December 1964, Sam Cooke was shot dead, so we're told, in a motel. The story being that he'd been out earlier that night drinking in this restaurant till the early hours. He'd picked up this girl, took this girl back to a motel. The girl then claimed that Sam Cooke tried to rape her. So she ran out into the corridor in a blind panic, banged on the door of the manageress's office, who let her in, and said, "He's trying to attack me." Sam Cooke bursts into the manageress's office, so we're told, and she shoots him in the torso and hits him over the head with a broom. But there's doubt cast on whether this was the whole story by many people from the time, including the singer Etta James, who was a friend of Sam Cooke's. And she said that she saw the body and it was absolutely beaten and mutilated almost beyond recognition. And it goes way beyond a gunshot wound and a hit on the head with a broom. This was December 1964. He was aged 33. Then, in December 1967, 3 years later, Otis Redding dies in a plane crash, just a few days after he recorded his most famous song, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. So his record sales naturally went through the roof. Just like Whitney Houston's, who died, I think it was the 11th of February in 2012, just before Valentine's Day. And so many of Whitney Houston's records were love songs that people like to buy on Valentine's Day. So her record sales went through the roof that year, making an absolute bloody fortune for her record label and her handler, Clive Davis. But back to the Sam Cooke and Otis Redding story. So those two have now been removed by 1967, but James Brown was left alive. So evidently all three of these artists pissed off their record labels and became a real thorn in the side for them. But they did decide to allow James Brown to go on living so long as he put in decades more faithful service to the industry. And he did. And he became known as the hardest working man in show business, probably not through personal choice. He was probably forced to keep putting in the work all these decades later. But things reached the point of 2006, and evidently it's decided that James Brown has outlived his usefulness. So on Christmas Day of 2006, 10 years to the day before George Michael turns up dead in bed, James Brown goes into hospital for what is supposed to be some routine surgery, and he doesn't come out again. Well, he does, but in a body bag. And there was some doubt cast on, whether that's the full story, specifically by his son, Darryl Brown. He did an interview with Sean Stone, the son of the filmmaker Oliver Stone. And Darryl saying that his father was murdered, quite simply. And there was actually a major campaign at the time among many people in the music industry and outside of it to get James Brown's death properly looked into as a murder investigation, because many people feel that he was poisoned in hospital. Haven't heard that dynamic much, have you, lately?
I've never heard that story before, Matt. You've absolutely blown my mind. James Brown's one of my all-time favourites. And imagine what Sam Cooke and Otis Redding would have produced after that period of time. If those three had started their little thing together, can you imagine what they'd have done?
I know.
Well, chuck into the mix, I don't know, Marvin Gaye. I know it's further down the line, but Marvin Gaye was a 60s star, weren't he, as well?
And also, when you think about James Brown now, you think about all
Teddy
the
Pendergrass,
all the performances you see him do. He looks controlled, doesn't he? He was too old to be doing the splits.
Well, exactly that. He heavily influenced Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson is said to have remained at his bedside for 2 hours, I think, after he died, because Michael Jackson was distraught at the loss of someone he considered to be a mentor and a father figure. And many of Michael Jackson's famous dance steps he learnt from James Brown. But there was a commercial that James Brown took part in 2002 for BMW. And it actually depicts him selling his soul for fame and fortune.
Right. We know who owns BMW, the Quant family. The Quant family have a history, a big history. Well, the founder of the Quant name was... Let me get this right. He was married, and then he got divorced. He had a child with this lady, I forget her name now, but she married Joseph Goebbels. So the the Kwan family's linked to Goebbels. That's where me and Chris were pissing ourselves that time, because the best man at the wedding was Hitler. Don't get us going on that one again.
I couldn't stop laughing.
We could stop laughing on that.
It was me because I didn't know that, and he told me.
Imagine having Hitler as your best man. Anyway,
Yeah, something's gone desperately wrong when he's your best man.
Yeah.
So James Brown is actually physically doing an advert.
Yeah. I mean, this advert is on YouTube. You can look it up. It's from 2002, and it depicts the legend of the Crossroads. And this is a music industry legend, which was first personified by Robert Johnson, the blues musician, in the 1930s, who is said to have sold his soul for fame and fortune and great musical talent. And this has been featured in many songs, and it's been referred to in many movies over the years, allegorically. And Robert Johnson was the first member of the so-called 27 Club, this large number of prominent musicians who just happened to turn up dead at the age of 27 in some bizarre circumstance or other. So the BMW commercial is calling on this legend of the Crossroads, and it features James Brown, or is an actor playing a young James Brown. It's supposed to be in 1954, when James was 21. And he's out at a remote desert location at a crossroads, and he meets the devil and basically trades his soul for fame and fortune. And then it fast forwards to present day, and James has a meeting with the devil, and he says, I want to renegotiate the contract. And the devil says, well, the terms were very clear, your soul in exchange for a lifetime of fame. And James says, yeah, but I didn't take into account the aging process. I can't do the splits anymore.
Right.
And so the devil says, well, let's renegotiate. And James gives up his driver, who's played by the actor Clive Owen, as a new soul to replace his in this deal with the devil. And they end up having a drag race through the desert, and the devil's car goes up in flames, and he's supposed to have perished, even though you see him at the end of the video and he's just fine. But it directly refers to the process of selling your soul. And James Brown does a voiceover, and he says, I shouldn't have done it. It was a bad deal. Reminds me of Kanye West's recent comments, I made a deal with the devil. It was a crappy deal. At least it came with a few toys, like a Happy Meal. Yeah. But there
why did he need to make that advert?
But also, if you think about James Brown's career, he, out of all black singers, distanced himself from black people. He was a pure businessman. Even though he sung black music, I saw a few documentaries on him, and although he went to black rallies, he was saying that black people should rise up and become their own business people and join in with basically the white people doing business. Right. And he got shouted at in this rally he were at because they didn't actually like him because he wasn't black enough, if you get my drift. He wasn't on their side. Right. He was on the side of business. Yeah. Which, going back to what you were saying, if he's doing a BMW advert, he is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he was used as the public face for the civil rights movement in the 1960s. Yeah. And when you get down to the research, you come to discover that whole movement was very much controlled and very much infiltrated. Why would that even be a surprise? Yeah. Because any movement that gains any kind of prominence like that is going to bear all the hallmarks of being controlled from the inside. So they're going to want their people as the public face of that. And James was being used for that, way back in the 1960s. So his entire career has been controlled.
It was literally him and Muhammad Ali, wasn't it?
Every time you think you've found a hero who represents the interests of the average regular person out there, when you get into their affiliations and their connections, every single time you get disappointed. Sorry to say, I hate to be a Debbie Downer about it, but even Martin Luther King, who on the surface appeared to stand for some very noble values, but you realize that he was connected to the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and research shows that organization was very much pushing a variation on communism, and it was advocating for black people to migrate to different areas of the Deep South in America and set up their own sort of communistic communities outside of the rest of America. And MLK was, something of a public face for that whole thing. So you never can find a hero out there, it seems.
I do feel a bit better that James Brown at least didn't have a choice by the sounds of it, from what you've told us there, Matt. It's interesting as well. I was thinking about Sam Cooke. They didn't just kill him, they humiliated him, didn't they? They destroyed his legacy, like with a rape involved.
Oh, and the other thing is he's said to have run down the corridor after this girl wearing one shoe.
Oh, really?
That got reported in the newspaper.
Old chestnut.
Now that's deeply Masonic in terms of the symbolism involved. Because at a lot of these false flag terror events that have happened over recent years, the research at Ole Damagard goes into this. You see so many of the so-called victims with one shoe on for some reason. For some reason, a shoe always gets blown off their foot.
Yeah.
And it's Masonic symbolism. It's a little calling card to let you know who did it.
They also used to humiliate James Brown a lot as well, thinking about it. Because I remember seeing, I don't know if you ever saw it, and they were interviewing him, and he was clearly high as a kite. And all they did was keep, every time they asked him a question, he'd just go, yeah, get off the good foot. And they'd just revert back to one of his songs. And they were clearly laughing and mocking him. It was clearly a symbolic mock thing. Because why would that be on national American TV news?
I saw him on a show, and he were in the 60s, the Playboy Bunny House with Hugh Hefner.
Right.
I'll try and dig it out. It's on YouTube. Like on for, I don't know, an hour. I must have had a Playboy before, in the 60s, a Playboy TV channel. Right. And they had it on, and there were just musicians there. People, I mean, why would he go there? That's a strange place to go anyway, isn't it? He looked off his napper then as well.
Hugh Hefner crops up in that same family tree of Madonna, Celine Dion, George Bush. I've got a copy of this family tree. It goes off in many different directions, but Hugh Hefner's name crops up. So one way or another, he's connected to all these others. It's like 12th, 13th cousins, something like that. But Abraham Lincoln is in there. Turns out Barack Obama's in there. Dick Cheney's in there. So, well, I mean, when you George Bush was related to his own vice president.
Well, when you think about like Tony Blair, his wife, Sherry Booth, was, going back to Abraham Lincoln, was related to
John Wilkes.
John Wilkes Booth.
That's right. Yeah. She's a descendant of John Wilkes Booth. And then a few generations later, she crops up as the wife of the British Prime Minister. That's by accident, right? I mean, Sherry Blair was obviously a beard for Tony.
Yeah.
Because, I think Tony's preferences probably lie elsewhere.
Yeah. Well, it was well known, wasn't it? And the research that I did on Tony Blair when he was at the schools he was at, there was 2 known predators at each school, and he was comforted by them, and one of them was his mentor. You aren't escaping 4 known predators. You're not escaping those people. Paedophiles, should I say. And he was known to be Miranda.
That's right.
That's what they called him, Miranda.
That's right. And, anyway. your research on previous shows, you've made the point that these people send their own offspring to these public schools in full knowledge of what's going to happen there, because they've been through it themselves, whether it's Eton or anywhere else. It's known what goes on in the dorms at night in these places, and yet they send them there anyway to traumatize them. And
it's almost like it's in there. It's in there. That's just what happens, and you have to deal with that.
It's normal.
To lose their empathy. So they've got no empathy for it.
If you're unfortunate enough to be born into one of these bloodline families, then that's your destiny, unfortunately.
Yeah. If you're Boris Johnson and your dad tells you to go there because you've got to go to Eton, and Chris tells it, where he didn't even check the school, even though he knew
he'd never been there.
There were problems there.
He sent all his kids there. His daughters were the first girls to ever go to that school, and he never even went to the school. And he pushed them through there so they could go to Eton, didn't he?
Yeah, and in Johnson's words, and his sister's words, it were horrific.
Horrific.
The beatings he used to get. Yeah, it was words like that, horrific, and So
is there a level of sympathy that you have for those people? I don't know.
For the child, not the adult. You have to have sympathy for the child. It's not their fault.
That is a difficult one, isn't it? Whether you should feel some kind of pity for these people. But then you realize that we are governed by the dynamics of natural law, and you have the non-aggression principle and the self-defense principle, which are woven into the very fabric of this reality.
Yep.
And you have consequences that are dished out according to chosen behaviors on a societal basis and on an individual basis. And those two dynamics can be most simply expressed with the statement, do no harm, but take no shit. So you're not supposed to initiate any kind of aggression or violence or coercion against any other living sentient being. But if violence and coercion and aggression is initiated against you, and your safety and well-being is therefore at threat, you take on the right and the responsibility to do whatever is necessary to put that threat of harm down. So when you see psychopaths like Tony Blair and Boris Johnson spearheading agendas that seek to destroy the rights and freedoms of all of us, you have to do what is necessary to put that down. And you can't let concerns about, oh, what did they go through at school? And, I don't know what their life has been like. You can't take on those kind of considerations in that kind of situation. You just have to put the threat down in whatever way you need to do it.
Yeah, you can acknowledge it, but you've got to move on.
We had that.
Yeah,
we had that discussion over there, me and Dominic. It was about how long can you say you've had a bad childhood? How long can you blame your childhood for?
That's right.
Especially if your behaviour is then hurting another human being, then there's a point where you've got to grow up and shut up.
There comes a point where personal responsibility has to take a role, and you do get the odd individual that breaks free of these things. There have been examples from the Rothschild family of descendants of that particular bloodline saying that they want nothing to do with their regular activities and sort of stepping aside from that. It does happen every now and again. Every now and again, you get a musician that grows a conscience and says, I can't be a part of this industry machine anymore. Doesn't always end too well for them, but every now and again, you get one. And I'm just wondering where they are now, over the past couple of years. Where have been the odd ones to have grown a backbone and a pair of balls and a conscience?
Nobody. Comedians as well, Matt. Comedians,
not many,
actors.
Not many.
British comedians were always, satire and bring the government down. Nothing. Not a peep.
Nope.
Not
Lee Hurst, Alistair Williams, and that's about it.
I heard you mention Lee Hurst. I've been to his comedy club a few times, and he vanished from the TV, didn't he? He used to be a pundit on everything, and then he just vanished. He's got his own comedy club in East End. I've been there 2 or 3 times, actually, when I lived in London. Very funny guy.
Yeah, I went to one just before Christmas in Bethnal Green there, Backyard Comedy Club.
Yeah.
So it was very funny, but he didn't talk about COVID at all.
All right.
He just completely avoided all of that. But on his Twitter, on his social media, he's bang on it every single day, just highlighting the absurdity of things. I guess he wants to keep his club going and doesn't want to get shut down.
I mean, you can understand it from that point of view, can
you? But even sports people are a prime example, because if anything's happening in the world at the minute that's quite obvious, is sports people keeling over, and they're having the arm spear or the treble top, if you like, 3-dart finish, and they're keeling over on the pitch, having to retire. And it's not just 1 or 2. I mean, Hugo put another video out the other day. I think there's 400 now.
Yeah, well, I get emails from you pretty much every day. Yeah. Here's another one, and another one,
here's another
and another one.
You send me that Homer Simpson thing back.
I send you the Homer Simpson gif. It's Homer just going, what mainstream media is doing. Yeah, nothing to see here. Yeah. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the cover up there is amazing, isn't it? When you think about it. I mean, with sport as well. I mean, I remember Dom. He was sending me things really early on in this of bodybuilders dropping, even before the footballers started to go.
Yeah, after the spears. I mean, I'm into bodybuilding or weight training, and there seems to be a lot of people in that world. I know they take stuff they shouldn't be taking as well.
But that makes them prone to drop.
Performance enhancing.
That makes them prone to drop.
That makes them I would say prone to drop. But even the cognitive dissonance there, I was going to listen to a podcast, and it said, why are all these athletes dropping? And none of them mentioned anything to do with the arm spear. Everything was about performance enhancing drugs, dieting, etc., etc.
The elephant in the room.
The elephant in the room is the difference is they've had a 3-dart finish, and they're out. See you later.
That's right.
It's
I mean, every aspect of popular culture is completely controlled in this way. So it's not just the music business. It's professional sports, it's the television industry, it's supermodels, it's celebrity chefs, it's fashion, any
I think
other
fashion's a big one, yeah.
industry. Yeah.
fashion.
You know, there's endless examples of fashion models doing the one eye thing and flashing up the pyramid and the 666 symbol of stuff, just like all the musicians do. So they're clearly controlled and directed by the same forces. And this has been my argument for many, many years. And I just keep on finding further and further validation of this. You know, those of us that have been saying this for years and years and years and used to get derided and mocked for it and dismissed as tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theory nut jobs, we're getting vindicated by the day.
Yeah, you are.
We were right all along.
Yeah. Have you ever done any digging on Simon Cowell? Deep digging? It's not somebody I've looked at.
No, not a deep dive on him, just on the surface.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a deep
He's
suspect in.
He's a strange character, isn't he?
Yeah.
Very strange character. How has he been handed, again, that golden ticket to the blankety blank checkbook and pen world? Because he seems to can do no wrong, even when he does wrong. And that's what you see with all these people, isn't it? They can lie, they can cheat, they can scam people, and they still have that upward trajectory in their career.
Yeah, well, Johnson and Fauci are still in jobs, so absolutely. Simon Cowell put up the bail money for Jonathan King when his case went to court accusing him of multiple counts of pedophilia. And apparently Max Clifford, who was Simon Cowell's publicist at the time, took him to one side and had a word with him about what kind of man Jonathan King was. Before Max Clifford himself found himself in court accused of multiple counts of sexual misconduct.
But now,
yeah.
If you wanted to make this shit up, you couldn't, could you? Even if you were the best screenwriter or script writer, you couldn't write this stuff, could you? Because I mean, me and Chris were looking at a couple of authors, weren't we, Chris? And Robert Ludlum, American guy, and John Le Carre, British guy. I think that's the stage name. Both of them, it took me about 5 minutes to realise that Ludlum, who did the Bourne identity stuff, and John Le Carre, who did the Smiley stuff with Gary Oldman, both worked for the security services. And so you're back into that world, even with, you read a book and you think, that's a really good book, and you're being mind controlled whether you like it or not.
That's why their books are in the window of Waterstones and yours out, Mark, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wear that as a badge of honour.
Yeah,
Same
exactly.
with Alistair MacLean and Ian Fleming.
Yeah.
Ian Fleming worked in naval intelligence during the Second World War, and many of the exploits of James Bond are based on Fleming's own personal experiences. I did a presentation about this. I'm actually doing a presentation at the Glastonbury Symposium in July.
Right.
I've been invited to go back there and speak this year. And it's going to be mind control through the James Bond stories. So it's me stepping outside of the music industry for a short while, which is something I like to do from time to time, and just talking about a subject that I don't normally address. I used to be a big fan of James Bond growing up. I like
used to be, yeah.
I liked the books because the books were very gritty and edgy. And when I was 12 or 13, they're full of sex and violence. Like this. And then the movies, which were more glossy and big budget and, blockbuster sort of thing. But there's so much mind control and propaganda through those James Bond stories when you know what you're looking for.
It's like they're putting the truth in there and then they're just covering it with action. But there is some bizarro truths in there.
Spectre is real, isn't it? Yeah. Spectre's real.
Yeah.
Spectre, Hydra.
I mean, Klaus Schwab is a real life James Bond villain.
It has to be.
Just before I came on, there's a picture of Klaus Schwab that I got where he's doing a hand signal like this.
Triangle.
I'm sure Donald Pleasance as Blofeld did that same pose.
I can see it. Yes, at his desk. Yeah. I heard someone say, and it could have been you, Matt, and they said, imagine if you took the James Bond scenario and the MI6 were the bad guys and the other guys were the good guys. And just switched it on the head. And what I mean is what Blofeld's doing is actually MI6 and vice versa.
Yeah, because we live in a satanically inverted society where everything is the opposite of what we're told it is.
I mean, I
think I made the point a while back in one of my shows that James Bond is portrayed as a hero and a good guy and virtuous. But when you really look at what he is, he's an order follower. Yeah. He's taking orders from paedophiles and Satanists, and he's going out and killing people, ending their lives on somebody else's say-so.
Yeah, and you've got to, if you look at it from the other guy's view, what he's just defending. I saw one recently actually, and it was in Siena because I've been there, and he's trying to kill this guy in a helicopter, and he's beating him up, and the helicopter's spinning dramatically through Siena, and there's about 1 million people underneath it, and you're like, that's not responsible, is it? If you're trying to save someone, you're spinning this massive helicopter through about thousands of, you could kill thousands of people.
But you think too much, Chris.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, you look too deep.
And then he kills him. He stabs this guy to death, throws him out of it. Then it's you're all supposed to go, hey! Like he's a psychopath.
Yeah. I used to try and be like James Bond. You know, when I was sort of 12 or 13, I'd watch. They always used to put James Bond films on Sunday nights on ITV, and so I would watch one of those. Wake up for school Monday morning with the film still playing in my head, and I was like, I'm going to be cool like James Bond, and used to try and act like him and get the girls like him. Never worked.
But
you
didn't have the tux on at school, that's why.
It just shows how influential these films are on people.
Oh yeah, I remember running down woods with my dad's white butcher's hat on, pretending to be Indiana Jones.
Didn't still have blood on it, did it?
Probably. And a piece of rope for a whip and a knife, when you could buy knives in 80s.
It were real in your head anyway, Chris. But I mean, James, the new James Bond just told the story of what's going on now. I sat down and watched it with my youngest, and it's just telling you about genetic altering, programming people's brains to be zombies. It's just...
Well, that's the reason, Dom, why it was delayed for so bloody long. Because that movie was slated for release in April 2020, and then along comes the nonsense and shuts down all the cinemas. So then we're told it will come out late 2020, November 2020. UK goes into another lockdown. We're told all cinemas got shut down again. It will be spring 2021. Then it got delayed from that, and eventually it got released in October 2021. But I think one of the main reasons why it got delayed is because of the plot. Because you got the villain, Rami Malek, who's developed this bioweapon that targets certain genetic types via their DNA and destroys them from within.
It'll never happen.
So I think that's the real reason why it was delayed, because it was too bloody similar to what people were being told by the BBC Evening News.
Yeah. And imagine that film must have been planned for, I mean, the script must have been written years before, or a couple of years before.
Oh, for sure.
And they know that we're so forgetful and mind screwed that we won't remember. When we watch James Bond now, we'll be like, it rings a bell, but I don't really know what they're about.
Hence why they don't like people like us, because we remember the nitty-gritty of it all and write it down and record it.
We pull it out of the subconscious mind into the conscious mind, and that's the key to it. It's subliminal programming. And when it's pointed out to the conscious mind, it seems so obvious. And never again will you be fooled in the same way once it goes into the conscious mind, because you've spotted the patterns and the tactics that are used. So they want it to remain in the realms of the subliminal mind. And that's the role that all these movies serve, and these TV shows and these music videos and these ads and everything else.
I saw a video the other day when we were up at Dom's, actually. And it's a guy, Enter the Stars is called. He does some good videos. And he did one about Brothers Grimsby, of all things. You know that film with Sacha Baron Cohen in it? It's a horrible film, actually. I did watch it. And it's all about world population. They're releasing a virus to kill half the world off.
Was it called Enter the Stasi? Might as well be.
But Sacha Baron Cohen all the way through, it's running around with, and this I think came out 2017. All the way through, he's running around with a T-shirt saying with a number 19 on it, and he picks. There's loads of stuff through that film. Predictive programming. I'd never heard that before, actually. Predictive programming, the nonsense from 2017.
Oh well, in the new book, I go through so many examples of movies and TV shows over the last 20 years or so,
right,
that have depicted aspects of what we're now living. So it's always the outbreak of a deadly respiratory disease, virus, and it decimates society. governments of the world all have to come together to come up with a solution. And in each and every case, the only possible solution that's ever proposed is mass vaccination. So that idea has been drip-fed into the subconscious of the general public the world over for the past 2 decades in preparation for this, because it was known to be coming for a very long time before it did.
And probably even regards polio, even though that was probably man-made. Well, it was. Since all you can think of is an iron lung and all these things. And so that was a virus that was spreading and it was annihilating. So all that time, all the way through, you're going back 70 years here and longer, all the way through, generation after generation have been programmed with this fear that these things are going to spread. And if we don't do these tyrannical things or inject you, that we're never going to be able to stop it. But, yeah. Do you want to go into these sound bites from the book, Mark? Because
well, we can.
We've already been on an hour, and we could talk for about 25 hours, I'm sure. But
well, we probably could. I mean, I braced myself for a long show today, so
we'll do at least 2 hours. So yeah, we're not quite rise above though, because them guys take it to a different level.
Yeah, they do, but they sit around smoking all night, don't they? So
I think they're enhanced.
It makes me laugh when they vanish for a bit and then they come back eating crisps.
Exactly. Yeah.
Takes me back to after parties in 90s. Too old for any of that business now.
Oh, the 90s, pure nostalgia.
Yeah.
I had an absolute ball for the entire decade of the 90s.
Yep.
Yeah, snap.
Missed those days.
Yeah. Hacienda on a Saturday night.
It all came to a wallop in there.
Oh, did you used to go?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Hacienda, yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Hacienda, early 90s.
Cream.
All the way through. Cream.
Graham Park, Mike Pickering.
Graham Park, yeah. Tom Wainwright.
Dave
We used to go on buses from Huddersfield to those big clubs.
Then in the mid 90s, Sheffield got popular. Love to Be in Sheffield.
Love to Be.
That was popular as well. Yeah, that were really good. And Leeds had some good clubs as well.
Back to Basics.
But, yeah, Back to Basics were good.
Yep.
That were a really good club. Had three or four floors of different music on each floor. It were really good. Well, it was similar to going to Ibiza, where you go into these clubs and there's 3 rooms, different genres of music. They'd have an R&B room right at the top. And we're going off on a tangent here, aren't we? Deep house right downstairs. It were good. So you could get all the feel of everything, you know.
You could tell we're going back a bit here to the days when nightclubs were actually open and where you didn't need a triple arm spear to get through the door. Imagine that.
I think in your books, Matt, you've gone into the DJs, haven't you?
Well, I have, in volume 2.
The DJs are quite tainted.
Yeah.
I mean, Cal Cox was one of my hero DJs, I suppose, but I mean,
not anymore.
He's just a total
doing ads for the NHS saying, "Come on, guys, get your arm spear. Let's get the nightclub scene moving again."
Yeah, let's get them moving again, like they did in America with that rapper, the ones where they're all collapsing.
What, Travis Scott?
Yeah, Travis Scott. Yeah, that was.
A shit show,
the guys on Rise Above actually did a really good show on that as well. The week after that, that was interesting to say the least. That
the Astro World concert.
Astro World. I mean, there's so many alarm bells ringing on that. I mean,
what's your theory on that?
The biggest one for me, the biggest alarm bell, was that the very same weekend that we had what appeared to be a ritual sacrifice event happening at a concert called Astro World in Houston, a performer with the group UB40 just happened to turn up dead.
I remember hearing that.
Astro.
Weird.
What are the odds of a performer going by the name of Astro turning up dead the very same weekend as apparently several members of the crowd do at this event called Astro World with Travis Scott headlining? I mean, to me, that event was a modern day reboot of what happened with the Rolling Stones at Altamont in 1969. Where there was an audience member who got stabbed to death in front of the stage as the group performed by Hell's Angels, and 3 other people died at that event as well. And there have been many other examples of audience members at music concerts that have been killed.
One of the details as well, Matt, from that Rolling Stones concert I find fascinating is the guy who did the video footage was George Lucas, wasn't it?
That's right. It's like it was his induction into the film industry. The young cameraman on duty that day who just happened to capture that event on film, the actual murder, was a young George Lucas. Yeah,
he'll never make anything of his life.
I know.
I mean, I'm a big film fan, and a Star Wars fan, by the way. But even Star Wars was ruined, didn't it? But even the Star Wars story, if you like, of how they made that, they scrapped the money, got the money together to make that film, and it became this big. Even that, it screams of nonsense to me.
Yeah, everything comes with a cover story, doesn't it?
Yeah, a romantic cover story.
Bill Gates invented Microsoft in his garage.
Yeah, we always talk about garages.
The idea of Facebook in his college dorm one night, Yeah, these seem possible, don't they?
Like I said, I was always a big film fan, right? And I get Empire magazine, and I still get it. My missus subscribed me to it. But as time's gone on, I just start to over the last I've just seen the bullshit and the bullshit and the bullshit. For instance, talking about Star Wars, I remember reading an article, and it was the director of the third new batch of films, and he said, "Oh yeah, I went round to Mark Hamill's house, and we just bounced a few ideas around. Luke Skywalker. We bounced a few ideas around." Now, are you trying to tell me that the biggest film that year of all, that's ever going to come out that year, they wrote the script by him and going and having a coffee with Mike Hamill and bouncing some ideas around? There's teams and teams of writers involved in that, not him and Mark Hamill. That just does not make any sense, does it?
No.
Well, nothing does it? We're told Klaus Schwab wrote his book, The Great Reset. So he came up with the initial concept of it, sat down and wrote it, produced it for typesetting, had it proofed, presumably, typeset, published, printed, distributed by June 2020, when the scamdemic broke in March. So that entire process took 3 months. I mean, I publish books.
I was going to say, you understand the system, don't you? I was writing
My first book took 2 years to produce, and that was working fast. And we're told he turned that around in 3 months. These cover stories are just infantile. They speak to the contempt that they have for us. They just think we're all ignorant, bloody morons.
Idiots with no memories at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Klaus Schwab is, again, going back to Bloodlines, he's an obvious... when we did that research on Klaus Schwab, you could have literally gone on and on and on. I had to cut it off because there were so many links back to the States. I mean, he was there on 9/11 having a cup of coffee with the head Ashkenazi Jewish rabbi in New York while the towers went down, watching it unfold, literally. There aren't. This happens too many times. It was like that was a show and everyone got invited. You watch this because the amount of people that were there that were watching this thing it just wouldn't have happened. It's unprecedented, isn't it?
Paul McCartney was in town that day.
Right.
The story that he tells is that he was on the tarmac at JFK Airport waiting to take off when the towers came down and all the planes got cancelled. But, just the fact that he was in New York that day, and there's a number of celebrities who are said to have narrowly escaped death because they were due to be in the World Trade Center towers that day, but for whatever reason they didn't attend. One of them is Michael Jackson. There's Seth, what's his name? The guy from South Park.
Rogan, is it? Seth Rogen.
No,
Seth, not Rogan. Not
Seth MacFarlane, is it?
Yeah, you might be right there.
The guy that does bloody South Park and that
Family Guy. No, he's the Family Guy, isn't it?
Family Guy, that's it. Yeah, he was supposed to be in town that day. Many others as well. Lots of actresses and stuff. I mean, what are the chances of these people being there at that time? It's like the Lockerbie air disaster of 1988 when that plane came down. Johnny Rotten tells the story that he was due to be on that flight. And the only reason he escaped death is because his wife at the time was taking too long to pack their suitcase to fly across the Atlantic. And they said, oh, forget it, we'll just get a later flight. Otherwise he'd have been on it. So he says.
That's what you do.
The Four Tops, the entire group, were due to be on that plane, but they were running late after their performance on Top of the Pops, so they missed it. This is what we're told. And then you've got the story of Chrissie Hynde of the Pretenders just happened to be in place when the Kent State massacre went down in 1970, I think it was, where police shot a bunch of students. Chrissie Hynde just happened to be, in attendance there. It's like George Lucas just happening to be at Altamont, where this guy gets stabbed at the Rolling Stones concert. These people are in these places at the times of these events against all the odds, and we're asked to believe it's just random chance and coincidence.
Yeah. Speaking of Johnny Rotten, there's a good part in that in your new book about Johnny Rotten, which we were talking about off air. Which do you want to have a chat about that little link there with Johnny Rotten?
Yeah, should we bring in the
Parliament
Smiths to that one?
Yeah, bringing the Smiths. Yeah, the Smiths. That's a good part as well. Yeah.
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 So
Probably
this is
ruin
the
it for Chris
story.
now.
So we're getting into the sound bites now. We got there in the end. This is a story that I'm presenting at some of my live talks. I've done this one 4 or 5 times already, and it concerns the Smiths' song Panic, which came out in 1986 from the Queen is Dead album. The lyrics talk about hang the DJ in the chorus, and you have lines like burn down the disco, hang the blessed DJ, because the music they constantly play says nothing to me about my life. And then you have more puzzling lines like on the Leeds side streets that you slip down, provincial towns that you jog round. And then things like hopes may rise on the Grasmere, but honey pie, you're not safe here. So there was a conspiracy theory that arose on the internet a few years ago, which was of the opinion that the Smiths song Panic was a reference to Jimmy Savile and what he used to get up to. And when you think about it, it does make sense of a lot of these lyrics. On the Leeds side streets that you slip down, well, Savile was from Leeds.
Yep.
He had an apartment in Roundhay Park, Leeds,
Yep.
very close to which one of the Yorkshire Rippers' victims was discovered. And Savile was affiliated with Peter Sutcliffe. He was friends with him. He went to visit him at Broadmoor Hospital, prison. And according to many researchers, including Thomas Sheridan over in Ireland, Savile was an accomplice of Peter Sutcliffe and was actually involved in some of these Yorkshire Ripper murders. So that's one thing. The sleeve design to Panic features the image of an American actor named Richard Bradford for no apparent reason. So we have Bradford. Where was Peter Sutcliffe from? Bradford.
Yeah.
Savile's from Leeds. Savile used to take part in marathons and fun runs, so provincial towns that you jog round. The lyrics go, panic on the streets of London, panic on the streets of Birmingham. I wonder to myself, will life ever be sane again?
And there was another link to Savile and Brady, wasn't there, from the Moors Murderers?
Moors Murders. Well, the thing about that is that up until the trial of Myra Hindley for the Moors Murders, Savile used to have dark hair. And then he started bleaching his hair peroxide blonde. And according to Sheridan and some others, this was in homage and tribute to Myra Hindley. So Savile took on the Hindley look with that peroxide blonde hair, which he kept for the rest of his career. So the idea is that the song Panic is letting anyone with the eyes to see know what Jimmy Savile was up to. The Johnny Rotten link comes from the fact that in his autobiography, Anger is an Energy, Johnny Rotten talks about having attended kinky sex parties at the House of Commons immediately prior to finding fame with the Sex Pistols, when Malcolm McLaren put that group together because the Sex Pistols were effectively a boy band that were artificially manufactured to be the figureheads of the emerging pop scene. Right, so that was all controlled. And there's a promotional video for Panic, which was directed by a New Zealand filmmaker called Derek Jarman. And it was part of a series of films that he did to promote the Queen is Dead album. In this particular version of the Panic video, you have all these subliminal images flashed momentarily into the subconscious mind of the viewer. And the images include shot to the House of Commons, Buckingham Palace, later seen to be on fire, a spinning crown, groups of very young children playing, and a guy at the end of the video kissing a skull. And if we try to interpret what some of this symbolism might mean, well, the children being in the video kind of speaks for itself when we factor in what we know about Savile. Then you've got the House of Commons. So Johnny Rotten claims that he attended these kinky sex parties involving many well-known politicians. And Johnny Rotten in 1978 made the very famous comment that he'd like to kill several people. And one of them is Jimmy Savile. He says, I bet he's into all kinds of sordid stuff that we're not supposed to talk about. So this indicated some inside knowledge on the part of Johnny Rotten as to what Savile was up to all those years ago. Buckingham Palace, well, it's known that Savile had close connections to the British royal family. The Queen knighted him. The Queen loved him. He was close personal friends with Prince Charles. He was brought in as a marriage counsellor for Charles and Diana when their marriage was on the rocks. I mean, who else you going to call but a sleazy aging DJ in a blue shell suit?
A single aging weirdo DJ.
Natural choice.
A weird DJ in a shell suit with slip-on shoes.
For a quick getaway.
Yeah, perfect choice.
Yeah, so there's the connection to Buckingham Palace. And then you got the guy kissing the skull at the end. Well, that would appear to be a reference to necrophilia on this lovely family-friendly show, which Savile was reportedly into, according to Paul Gambaccini of BBC Radio 2 fame, who worked with Savile. You know, he came out in the wake of the Savile revelations saying that he was into necrophilia. So all of these things appear to be communicated in that song and that video. And here we are all these decades later, finally able to put the pieces together and realize what was probably being communicated. I mean, I'm sure if you asked Morrissey and Johnny Marr what that song was all about, they would stick to the official cover story, which is that it was in response to the Chernobyl nuclear disaster being reported on Radio 1 Newsbeat in 1986. And then Steve Wright, the DJ, came on immediately afterwards, playing Wham! I'm Your Man. And Johnny Marr says, you know, they found it very distasteful that they've just broadcast this story of terrible death and destruction, and then Steve Wright's back on in smashy and nicey mode, you know, and here we are with Wham! I'm Your Man, it's Radio 1. And they were just like making light of it. They would probably tell you that that's the inspiration for the song. But as we mentioned earlier in the show, everything comes with a cover story, doesn't it? And many of these cover stories seem very implausible in the face of evidence to suggest something else.
Well, round in Yorkshire, you know, with Savile, somebody sent me some bit of information that I started putting together some information on Savile on a line that people hadn't spoke about. There was actually a Lord Savile in West Yorkshire, and he owned a lot of land, did Lord Savile. And Savile used to call his mother the Duchess.
That's right.
Yeah. So Savile's not really a massive name around, but also when the Lord Savile died, now maybe there's a relation link there. When he died, his son took over the barony, and he was connected to the Lumleys.
Joanna Lumley.
Yeah, exactly. And she was part of the Indian connection, all the Raj and stuff like that. Her family were out there, so I think there's some sort of, if I'd really dug when I get time to do that, I think there's some sort of line going right through that, which wouldn't surprise us with Joanna Lumley then, would it? With what she's had to say.
That's right. And, you know, there's got to be a reason for that long, prolific career. It doesn't come with good luck and a bit of hard work.
And the links to the old family of the Red Shield, the Rothschilds. Lumley's, because she's always shouting out and meeting up with them guys, isn't she?
Yeah.
There was another one that you spoke about, which I'd heard of the band Propaganda, but I thought that was a really eerie 2 or 3 videos that they made and songs they made, story that you wrote in your book.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually really liked this group in the mid-'80s. They were signed to ZTT Records, the same label as Frankie Goes to Hollywood, and they recorded at Trevor Horn's studios. And they were masterminded by Paul Morley, who used to be a journalist for NME. He was involved in a lot of the hype around Frankie Goes to Hollywood. And he also worked with the band Propaganda to the point that he ended up marrying the lead singer, Claudia Brücken. So they're a German group. And what made me want to write about them in the book is very much the video to their song Jewel, which came out in 1985. And it blatantly depicts lifelong satanic ritual abuse, mind control programming. It's right there. You got a video which features the group, or Claudia Brücken, the singer, going into this, what looks like an opium den with one of the other group members. And they have their drinks spiked and they fall into a coma. And then they wake up imprisoned in this sort of dungeon basement. And they're having all kinds of abuse done to them. And they have to overcome their captors and escape from this basement. But there's a section in the middle of the video where you see a young girl clutching a doll, looking into a mirror. And then it goes to Claudia Brooken, the singer with the group, in the same white nightdress looking into a mirror. And then you have an old lady in the white nightdress looking into a mirror, and she smashes the mirror with a doll. And when you've learnt to recognize what this symbolism means, as I have through looking at the Vigilant Citizen site and other sources, you realize that the presence of mirrors and dolls indicates mind control programming, trauma-based mind control, and satanic ritual abuse, which are kind of interchangeable. So this video is depicting a girl from young childhood being put into a lifetime of abuse. And it's right there in the video. And one of their other songs was Dr. Mabusa, which came out in 1984. Go figure. And this was all about selling your soul for fame and fortune. So it was taken on the sort of idea of the Faustian
bargain
deal with the devil, going back to the crossroads that we were talking about earlier, Robert Johnson and all this. So Dr. Mabusa was all about that. And they were quite a short-lived group. But yeah, I thought it was interesting to delve into some of the things that their songs and their videos conveyed.
But what gets me is the level of detail that these satanic elements go into when, like you say, they're not a big band out of propaganda. People will have heard of them of our age group, but they're willing to go to the level to make their videos satanic, just so it's out there, just so people can see what control they have. That's what amazes me, the levels of detail that they go to from an individual basis, that these satanic worshippers want to take us down this horrible rabbit hole.
I mean, were that band just produced just to make them two or three videos?
The very name itself should tell you.
It's right there in the name. But, in the 1980s, they were getting away with it and they were flying under the radar because 99.99% of the viewing public would have had no clue what those icons and those motifs were there for. But now it's a different matter. Now we can do the research, and now we can finally understand what was going on in pop videos 40 or 50 years ago. We're actually quite privileged, our generation, to be able to at least know what was being used against us all that time, which people...
And we were there, weren't we? We were there. Yeah. So we can see what's happened to people, the zombies of our ages, who are walking around now with children willing to arm spear them because of all this propaganda that they've had shoved down the throat for 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
From the 80s. And the 80s probably was that generation, wasn't it? When it started changing. They started using talentless people on TV and radio and things like that. I mean, you were talking earlier, Chris, I know it's something slightly different, about Dr. Hillary. I mean, there's anybody I'd like to spend 5 minutes in a room with, it's Dr.
Well, I was just before we did this, I was listening to Rich Allen's show from the other day, and he was saying, I haven't witnessed this myself, but apparently Dr. Hillary's done a full flip around, and now he doesn't believe that nurses should have to get the jibby jab. But I'm pretty sure I heard him saying they should get it.
Not just 2 days ago, when that other doctor were on there, or whatever, a week ago. Yeah.
I mean,
a few U-turns happening at the moment, isn't there?
It's got a bit strange, hasn't it, Mark?
Yeah, there is. It's strange.
I mean, they're rolling it back. Are they rolling it back so they can push back forward? I had a theory in my head the other day, was the whole thing about getting rid of Johnson, is it to get rid of him so they can bring in the real fascist, which happens in films and in real life quite often, doesn't it? It's so bad, it's so bad. I don't know.
Maybe Richie should.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Well, yeah, it makes you wonder. I mean, I've seen some positive, encouraging things. The way I interpret it is that these are positive, encouraging things. All these restrictions being rolled back on the surface of it is a good thing. And it's very interesting that Wales and Scotland have followed very closely in the footsteps of England.
Yeah, they have. Yeah.
It was very, hardline.
I've always said to Dom, if behind the forces, the evil forces, there must be a good force. And if we win something, we'll never know. We won't know straight away because the media's controlled. As Gil Scott said, the revolution will not be televised, will it? We won't know until...
Yeah. And another thing, I know we're jumping around all over the place here.
Sorry about that. That's me as well.
Well, no, it's me as well. I mean, I've been curating these mass meditations for several months, and I think this is a really worthwhile thing. I'm trying to get as many people as possible in my audience to take part in these experiments, if you like, or, concentration, intention experiments, which you can call meditations. And I really feel that these have been having an effect. because many people email me to say that they've taken part in these things and they've envisaged and applied their consciousness and their will to bring it about a situation where the values of truth, love, freedom, justice prevail. Because what people have told me about when you cast your consciousness towards these sort of things is you don't wish for things like the overthrow of evil. You don't wish for things like Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates to be, face their rightful justice. You imagine a scenario where...
It's difficult, that, Mark. Very difficult.
And what you said about Dr. Shillery there, I mean, just imagine 5 minutes in a room with Dr. Shillery and a garden shovel. Imagine the possibilities. So it's tempting. Of course, it's tempting. But with
there would be 2 hits, Mark. There'd be 2 hits. Me hitting him and him hitting the floor.
But yeah, it'd be over too quick then, wouldn't it?
But we shouldn't go to their level. We shouldn't think about violence.
No. This is the point. With these meditations, you imagine truth and freedom, and then evil and darkness and tyranny can't thrive and survive in that kind of environment. So that's what I've been told about these meditations. But the point to make here is we don't know how much of a worse place we might all be in collectively if these things weren't taking place. If they'd not happened, we could be much further down the line towards dystopia by now. We hear they're building these bloody super prisons. I don't believe that they'll get used for the purpose that they probably want them to be used for, but they're being built, evidently. Yeah. And so we could have all found ourselves in one of these things by now. But I believe we haven't, because we've been stemming the tide to a very large extent. We've been pushing this back, and we find ourselves in England in a much more fortunate position than many of our European cousins. Austria, Germany, Czech Republic, these places are terrible right now. Slovenia. We're in a much better position. Is that because there's been a lot of these meditation type events going on? Is it because we've got these legal cases being brought by Michael Obernicia and Mark Sexton and Philip Hyland with this criminal investigation that's been lodged with the Metropolitan Police? Is it because all these freedom rallies and protests have been taking place all over the nation, with many more happening this weekend? I think it probably is. I think we've been...
All energy. It's all energy, isn't it?
And all of the above.
Even this conversation's energy thrown back at that situation.
Shining that light on all the work that you've done with your books, your podcasts.
I mean, they gather data. The data gathering must be phenomenal. And they put something out there. They gather the data and they can see the reaction, and they can see how many people are talking against their system. Hence why on TV they're always having a go at anti-jib jabbers, because why, if it's such a good product, why do you have to sell it and slag off the other guy? You shouldn't have to do that, should you?
And put it on motorway signs, which are supposed to be there for road safety measures.
Dom sent me a picture of the third arm spear, and it was in it was a picture of a load of newspapers, wasn't it? Every newspaper, front page. Can you imagine how much? We're paying for that. How much money did that cost to get the front page of every newspaper?
Yeah, they're shutting down surgeries and libraries and stuff because there's no money. But there's plenty when they want a national ad campaign like that. Yeah.
It must cost millions.
I always tell a story of my wife's dad and mum living next door to a doctor. And while this has been going on, he lives in a really nice house. He's spent circa 100 grand on his roof. He's got a new Merc. He's sandblasted his house. He's done all his garden. I call him Harold Shipman. When I see my father-in-law says, "How's murderer doing?" He went, "Oh no, he's not a bad guy, Dom. He's not a bad." I said, "Well, ironically, his father passed away of a heart attack. The doctors, and my father-in-law actually asked him, "Do you think it was the treble, the third arm spear that did it?" And the doctor said to him, "Well, no, he had a heart condition, but I think it was just the heart condition that caused it." So he knows. These people know that they are Harold Shipmans. Every GP in this country who's been part of this is Harold Shipman, bar none.
Yeah. I like to think there's some soul searching that goes on with these people, when they look at themselves in the mirror at the end of the day. I like to think that many troubling thoughts go through their minds and their conscience is poking them in the ribs and saying, "You should not be doing this."
They must know that there's something going. They must know there's an agenda going on. They have to be really stupid, and you can't be that stupid if you're a doctor.
Well, they're not doing the job. I mean, my background's business, and when you're doing something, even if you're DJing or anything, if you know something's not working, like you put a song on and nobody dances to it, you don't put it on again.
That's right.
So if you inject 20 people and 3 of them are having heart conditions from nowhere, then just that sort of due diligence, you must know that. If a nurse comes to you from your surgery and says, XYZ, there's 3 people coming with heart conditions this week, directly after this.
Well, forget that, Dom. Even if they just get Divock again.
Yeah, even if they go down with it. Yeah. Yeah. But anyway,
do you want to we digress. Do you want to get into this Kate Bush story then, Dom?
Yeah, I do, because we're going to go down the 91 Divock.
It's amazing how we always end up going back. You always end up going back there, don't you, at the moment?
Well, it's a big thing, isn't it, for us? It's our World War II, isn't it?
Yep.
It's a big thing.
All right, so back to the sound bites. I've got this story concerning Kate Bush. Again, I've presented this publicly at a few of my talks, so I'll just call it up here and give you a few interesting aspects. So Kate Bush got famous very quickly. She reportedly taught herself to play piano at the age of 11. She reportedly, notice how often I use the word reportedly in these shows, written several hundred songs by the age of 13.
Right.
We were talking earlier about family backgrounds and what you can learn from the father's profession. And as well as military intelligence personnel, in the music industry, when it comes to family backgrounds, you get quite a lot of doctors. Kate Bush's father, Robert Bush, was a doctor, but there's very little information about him online to establish what kind of doctor he was. So we have to fill in the blanks. I've got my ideas as to what he might have been into. Mind control.
My head's already spinning to the Paul McCartney, what was his girlfriend called? And her father was...
Oh, Jane Asher, yeah, Dr. Richard
Jane Asher. And her father was a psychiatrist or psychologist working for the government, wasn't it?
Dr. Richard Asher, yeah. He was involved in mind control experimentation, seemingly, and effects of hypnosis and this sort of thing. And he turned up dead in the basement of his house in 1969, a week after he'd gone missing. And the verdict was suicide. So the family, he'd gone missing. The family looked all over the house. Where is he? Went down in the basement. No, he's not here. A week later, he turns up dead in the basement. He's committed suicide. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And he was involved in all kinds of nefarious stuff. You got the father of Syd Barrett. What was his name? Max Barrett.
Yeah.
He was connected
from Pink Floyd. Yeah.
Pink Floyd, yeah. The original frontman of Pink Floyd, Syd Barrett. Yeah. That group was connected to Cambridge University. Syd Barrett's father did some work for them there. He seemingly was involved in this type of work. And so we got Kate Bush's father, and he was a doctor, but you find out very little about him. But throughout Kate's career, you have some very familiar symbolism, which harks back to mind control programming. And it's all stuff that we've seen in more recent videos from the likes of Miley Cyrus and Katy Perry and Lady Gaga and stuff. So back in the 70s and 80s, this was appearing in Kate's videos. So she's said to have been given a big break in the industry by Dave Gilmour, back to Pink Floyd. He replaced Syd Barrett in that group when Syd could no longer perform because of the effects, we're told, of taking too much LSD, fried his brains. But I think the truth is probably that Syd Barrett was a mind control subject and he'd undergone such horrific trauma that he could no longer function. So he had to...
He actually appeared, did Syd Barrett, when they were recording one of their famous albums, and he appeared in the recording studio, and none of the band recognised him. That's how far gone he was.
That's right.
And I saw a picture of it. He shaved all his eyebrows off or something ridiculous, and yeah.
Yeah, he said
he looked like a victim.
Lost the plot after too much LSD, but like I say, I suspect the truth lies elsewhere. So, yeah, Dave Gilmour replaced Syd Barrett, and Dave Gilmour is said to have given Kate Bush her big break in the industry. He got sent a demo tape of some of her songs, thought, oh, these are really good, and so he got a recording time at EMI Studios, the famous place where the Beatles recorded. As you do. The famous place where the Beatles recorded all of their stuff. And Jeff Emmerich, who was the engineer on many of the Beatles recordings, was retained as the engineer for Kate's debut recordings. This resulted in the appearance of The Kick Inside, her debut album, and her single Wuthering Heights. And it kickstarted a very fascinating career of incredibly creative songs that were so different to anything else out there. I think there's no denying that Kate Bush has incredible talent and does write some amazing songs. And she ended up taking control of every aspect of her career, down to directing her own videos. But there's some very disturbing undercurrents throughout the story. You've got The Man with the Child in His Eyes, which was one of her earlier hits in 1979.
Yeah.
And she wrote this, we're told, when she was 13. And it concerns the appearance of this sort of supernatural entity appearing in her bedroom late at night. So you wonder to yourself, what's that all about? And the cover story is that this was inspired by Steve Blacknell, this guy that was her boyfriend back in the day. He went on to have a career as a record industry executive and a TV presenter on MTV. And he claims he's the man with the child in his eyes. He's done interviews saying, yes, it was me. But, you know, it becomes quite a disturbing song when you look at it in different light. And then we got many, many others. There's a song called Lily, and it's from a 1993 album called The Red Shoes, which becomes interesting when you factor in stuff that we've come to hear about a certain industry.
Yeah.
And this song, Lily, the video is just full of sort of secret society, mystery school symbolism and religious and supernatural stuff. And this has been the case throughout many of her songs. Just scrolling through the article here.
Even Wuthering Heights, the
Brontes,
Bronte sisters and stuff like that. There's some strange things there, really, when you think about them. And I've never done any deep digging on them. But
well, the
was your way, wasn't it? A bit further north.
Yeah, Keighley, not far away.
That book must be famous for a reason, though, mustn't it?
Yeah,
the Bronte sisters.
Tell you what, we're bloody focusing on Yorkshire a lot in this chat. You know, Peter
so we should.
Where all the psychos
the centre
are,
of the earth.
down in Cambridge.
Yeah. But when you look at her back, saying she'd written all these songs, it reminds me of that work that Mike Williams did with the Beatles album, where it sort of showed that there wasn't a possibility that they could write all those songs in the studio at that one time. And it, as he pointed out, like the Wrecking Crew type bands that support these people, that it's already done for them. It's there. It's scripted.
Yeah. And that would have been the case throughout the history of the industry, I'm sure. You know, songs get pre-prepared for artists. They're not written by the people we're told wrote them. I mean, Mike Williams did a great job with that video. It's 4.5 hours long.
Yeah, it's great.
And he just broke down what the Beatles are acknowledged to have been doing every day for the duration of that album. And somehow they managed to fit in making films, writing songs, recording songs, going on chat shows to do interviews, touring, and having some semblance of a family life. And when he breaks it all down,
you realize loads of drugs.
You realize it's just not possible.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure this has gone on a lot. But yeah, that's the point about Kate Bush. And she's made a couple of songs that hint at her inside knowledge of hidden suppressed technologies that have been weaponized against the general public. So one is her song Cloud Busting. And the video to this was filmed down my way, actually, Uffington, White Horse Hill in Oxfordshire, a site of very mystical significance. It's a great video. It was directed by Terry Gilliam of Monty Python fame. And it featured Donald Sutherland playing the role of Wilhelm Reich. And it's all about Reich's hidden orgone energy technology, and specifically its applications in weather modification and cloud seeding. So the song and the video are all about Reich having built this machine that can move clouds around and cause them to rain, control the weather. And shady figures working for the government secretly are trying to steal his technology, just like what happened with
I think he's a conspiracy theorist. It will never happen, something like that.
Just like what happened with Tesla.
Yeah.
And Kate Bush is playing the part of Peter Wilhelm Reich's son. So you've got that there, and it speaks to weather modification, bloody chemtrails.
Sex change. Yeah, she-males.
Yeah, and orgone energy. And then you've got her song Experiment 4, which is all about secret sound technology happening in government research institutes hidden away from the public, where they're learning how to weaponize sound to control people. And in the video to the song, they're messing about with all this technology which they don't understand, and they end up conjuring up a demonic entity. And this demon rampages through the scientific building and kills all the bloody scientists. So you've got two songs there where she's talking about hidden technology being used as a weapon against the people. And you just wonder, how much did she know? And what circles did she move in to have access to this kind of knowledge?
Yeah, it sounds like the D-Wave computer, doesn't it? That Geordie Rose, who invented D-Wave, was talking about summoning demons up with that. And that's them D-Waves are used at CERN and places like that, aren't they?
There's about 4 of them, I think. Google, If you look at the components in those D-Wave computers, it looks like steampunk.
Well, they're meant to be like molecular computers, and the first person I saw writing about that was actually Robert Ludlum,
right?
In his some of his books.
Also, Mark, if if you made a song and you were going to make a pop video, and someone came to you with that script, you'd be like, "What? We're going to do what? We're going to make a."
I know we'll get Donald Sutherland, we'll get Terry Gilliam.
We'll make one about weaponized. Whether it makes no sense to a song, does it? It's not going to push that song, is it?
She was very closely affiliated with many of the alternative comedians in the 80s as well, Kate Bush. Right. She did a famous comic relief skit with Rowan Atkinson. Right. Do Bears Shit in the Woods, that one. Don't know if you remember that.
Right, yeah, I remember. Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah. And in the video to Experiment 4, she's got, I think it's Hugh Laurie. There's another one where she's got Tim McInerney, who was in Blackadder. Oh, she's got Robbie Coltrane in one of her videos. Right. She's got, I think Dawn French pops up in one of her videos. So she was very affiliated with that whole scene. And we were talking earlier about comedians and how they're controlled.
Yeah.
Where's Ben Elton?
Yeah.
Where's Ben Elton?
Where's Ben Elton now? Speaking about the injustice in society.
Yeah. Where is he? He was fantastic on Friday Night Live in 80s.
He was alternative, wasn't he? There's no alternative comedy.
It was radical.
Yeah, he was radical. He told us all he was radical.
I heard him on the radio.
Now where is he?
And he never didn't mention the
didn't
situation.
No. Oh, that's what a surprise.
Said he'd been radical now,
isn't he? No, he's not really radical now.
He's not radical.
Neither is Lenny Henry. He was totally radical.
Bloody hell. Oh yeah, Lenny Henry is now a sir. And this is the thing about Kate Bush. Very disappointingly, she took a CBE, Commander of the British Empire. That's a high up one. That's higher than MBE and OBE. And she took a CBE from the Queen in 2014.
Right.
Now, she's always been wildly creative and experimental and artistic. And you would think someone of that ilk would want nothing to do with the stuffy old British establishment and, empire and all this. But evidently, she was only too happy to take it.
Most people are, aren't they? I mean, I did a quick look on who turned it down. There's quite a lot of people turned it down, but most people accept it, 90-odd%. I think David Beckham will accept his. He might have a new wig on then.
Apparently, David Bowie turned one down.
Right.
But I mean, do they turn him down just for show? Just to keep a little bit of an edge.
Well, David Bowie was establishment just as much as anyone else. 100%. Sorry to say, another great artist, wildly creative, loved his music, but he's no different to Elton John or Rod Stewart or Mick Jagger. They're all just pieces of the establishment furniture.
That video, Mark, I'm sure you've seen it. Where is it on Sky News? Where just after Bowie died, his old producer or something comes on. Bloody hell,
Jack Stephen. Yeah.
Wow, that blew my mind. That did.
I know.
And when you see a picture of Jack Stephen, if that's his name, he doesn't look anything like him, does it?
Nope.
You see an interview with him, it didn't look.
And have you heard of Jack Stephen from that day to this?
No.
Me neither.
Well, apparently, and also coincidentally, he said in that one interview you do see, he said he's retired to France and he's just got married at his age of 50 odd, and then you never see him again. And then that guy who's supposed to be him, some kind of hybrid between him and David Bowie, turns up on Sky News. Sounds like David Bowie, got same teeth.
Dodgy eye fixed.
And he's took his contact lens out, fluffed his hair up a little bit. There you go. I sent Dom a video as well recently, and I forgot about this guy. That what was his name, Dom? The Michael Jackson.
Dave.
Yeah,
Dave.
Oh yeah, Michael Jackson. Yeah. Yeah. It does make you wonder because this character Dave is supposed to be called Dave Rothenstein, I think. So I think he might have been Jewish.
Right.
Yeah. So he appears.
I don't know if that name is it Jewish? It might be.
It might be. So anyway, he appears as Dave, and he's supposed to be a Burns victim. And the story is his father poured gasoline on him and set him alight when he was a young lad, and he had to have surgery, and he's got this horrific, appearance now. But the funny thing about it is, it sounds just like Michael Jackson. And he looks like you could imagine Michael Jackson would under heavy prosthetic makeup. And then you factor that in with the Jack Stephen thing, where you got this guy who's said to have been a former manager of David Bowie, although nobody had ever heard of him. I asked all my friends, have you ever heard of Jack Stephen? No, who's he? He just popped up out of nowhere. So they bring him out on Sky News the day after David Bowie is said to have died. Jack Stephen makes comments like, it was as if a little part of me died.
Mental.
In tribute to him. And then you never hear of him again. So you've got the Jack Stephen thing, the Dave thing, and you think, are they taking the piss out of us here?
I mean, the Dave, he could be Michael Jackson with all his prosthetics off, never mind on. That could be what he actually looked like, couldn't it?
All that reminds me of the Kate Garraway and Derek Draper thing that's been dragged out for 2 years on TV.
That's why they call him Draper, isn't it? Because they're draping it out.
Just draping him out. And when you realise that he were working, he worked for Tavistock as a psychologist.
Right.
All bets are off. That's what he did. He worked for Tavistock, and he was a psychologist. That's it. End of.
Strange story. That's a strange story.
It's gone, then. You don't even have to. You don't have to research any more on that one. But anyway.
Yeah. On the Tavistock front, Tavistock was affiliated with Aldous Huxley, the Huxley family of Brave New World fame. And it turns out there was a group in the early 1960s put together by a producer by the name of Joe Meek. And Joe Meek is another story in his own right, which I'll go into in Volume 1. But this group, the Tornadoes, was sort of the house band for Joe Meek's record label. And the personnel included, let me try and get this right, I'm doing this from memory. It was the father of Matt Bellamy, who was the frontman of Muse. So his father was in a group called the Tornadoes. Also in the Tornadoes was an individual by the name of Rob Huxley, who just turns out he just happens to be a cousin of Aldous Huxley. And there he is in this music group, alongside the father of the frontman of Muse, who one generation later would come out and make songs like Uprising. They've been a bit quiet, actually, haven't they, lately?
Yeah, where are you, Muse? Where are you?
Yep.
Quiet.
Depeche Mode had a song the other year called Where's the Revolution? Well, it's here, but where are you?
Where are you?
Yeah, they're a bit quiet as well.
It just makes you realise more and more that everything from comedy... all it's done is polarise how controlled everything is.
Cowards. They're all cowards.
This situation.
That's what they are.
To me.
Yeah, it's being left to right said Fred and bloody Gillian McKeith to be the activist these days. Something's gone wrong there.
Yeah. So it's gone very wrong. When I did that bit on GB News, I found out that one of the investors in GB News, this is worth hundreds of millions. This guy, he put 10 million into GB News, and he's the father of one of the founders of Mumford and Sons.
What's Mumford and Sons?
Yeah. It was a band, weren't it? Meant to be like this country type of band, weren't it? This live act. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So
I mean, these connections just never end, do they?
No. So he's the founder of GB News. These are the people that people think that it's a bit edgy GB News, isn't it?
Yeah. And this is the thing about rock stars. When I was growing up, I always imagined that most rock stars would come from sort of working class families. And if you looked at what their dads did, they would either have been musicians themselves, which is where the sons and the daughters got their inspiration from, or they do regular kind of jobs like labourers, builders, scaffolders, lorry drivers, dockers, this kind of thing. But very rarely do you find that. You find the fathers worked in government and the military or academia, not the kind of jobs you would imagine would spawn offspring who become rock musicians.
No.
And it just,
where
they all come from.
All the Pink Floyd guys all went to good schools.
Oh yeah.
Apart from I think Roger Waters didn't.
Roger Waters didn't, but the other guys did. They were incredibly posh, come from aristocratic families. Same with Queen, Roger Taylor and Brian May, very educated, very well-to-do families, and they become rock stars, and we see this so often. Yeah,
and the people. These people are made to be in that position because, as we found out in some of our, I think it was Whitty that we looked at, he went to a college, Grisham College or something like that, and all the generals went there, So all the people that were throwing people out of trenches in First World War all went there. All who was it the Stanek guy that went there, Chris?
Crowley.
Crowley went to the same school as Whitty. I mean, this stuff is just there. It's right in front of your eyes if you're just willing to turn that page.
Malvern School.
Malvern, that's the one. Yes, Malvern School. Yeah.
James Delingpole went there apparently.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
I'm chatting with James Delingpole in a few days. I'll have to ask him about that.
Yeah, it'd be nice. He seems a nice guy. He's got Lyme disease as well as James, I believe, like I have or had.
Oh right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he actually invited us on his show. Actually, and then
after seeing us on yours.
Communicated with him a bit, then it dried up.
He's apparently a big fan of my work, and it turns out we live about 5 miles from each other.
Oh, so fantastic.
We should really do a show together one of these days.
Yeah, you should do, because he seems like he's jumped over the fence, and he's got insider knowledge, and I think, not that he doesn't know about it, but he's got insider knowledge that you don't get a peek into that door ever, and he might not even know because it's normal to him, isn't it? It's his life. Yeah. It's a normal life to him.
See, I'm just baffled as to why there aren't more like him that have come from the sort of background that he's had and the sort of jobs that he's done, and they've had an attack of conscience, and they've realised that there's a war being waged against all of humanity, including their own children.
Yes,
and they need to step up and take right action. I would have thought legions of people from his sort of background would have come forward, and yet they haven't, which makes it all the more admirable when individuals like him do.
Yes.
But a comment I get all the time from people is, "Oh, you're doing great work. It's fantastic what you're doing." And I just think to myself, well, to me, it's nothing special, because everyone should be doing this.
Yeah, everyone's got the power.
This shouldn't be anything special. It should be what everyone does instinctively, naturally, when faced with the threats that we are.
Yeah, when faced with tyranny. And James is doing... he's jumped over the fence, because when he sees background, I thought, oh, it's just another one. And then you realise the books he's written, the things he's saying, he isn't. Because you can only go by what people are doing now, not what they've done in the past. Everyone's got a past, whether you like it or not.
That's right.
And we can all close that door and say, I've learned my lesson, or I've learned from my past. And everyone's allowed to do that. So we're coming up to 2 hours, Mark. We said it wouldn't be 2 hours-ish. I think there's another few shows here somewhere down the line over the next few months or something anyway going on. Because what else have we missed out that you wanted to talk about?
Well, I mean, we can jump into one or two additional sound bites if you would like to.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
So let's see. I've got some stuff on Gary Newman. How about that?
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Gary Newman.
Yeah, Gary Newman.
Exactly. Let me just call it up here, because there's no way I could remember all this stuff without consulting notes. There's just too much of it.
One of the things about Bowie was, as well, sorry, digressing back, he was really the first one thrown out there that looked like a woman.
Yeah.
On mainstream TV. And that followed in then. The T-Rex guy was another one, wasn't he? That looked effeminate.
Yeah. Well, Brian Ferry as well, back then.
Yeah, Brian Ferry was, yeah. He had a bit more masculinity about him, but he wore all the eyeliner and stuff like that, didn't he?
Yeah.
He even looked a bit stranger, really, because he looked like a bloke and then just put eyeliner on. But anyway.
So Gary Newman, real name Gary Webb, he emerged very quickly in the late 70s with his group Tubeway Army. He had a couple of very big hits in 1979, Our Friends Electric and Cars. And I'm just pulling up the most interesting stuff about him, because it's very, very heavily influenced by Kraftwerk, the German synth band.
Yeah.
Apparently, Gary Newman was more into the new wave rock sound of that time, and he wanted his band to go down that sort of route. But he went into a studio. This sounds like another cover story, by the way. He went into a studio, and there was a synthesizer that had been left by the previous band, and he'd never seen one before. And he started messing about on it, and he really liked the sound. And he thought, I think I'm going to make my music on synths, and I think this is going to be my style. So that's what he embarked upon. The most interesting aspect of the story is right at the end of what I've put in Musical Truth. So let me just read this out. Perhaps most intriguingly of all, and possibly holding the key to his rapid rise to public prominence, the week in which Gary was born, in March 1958, was in the midst of what had been dubbed the National Child Development Study. Initially sponsored by the National Birthday Trust Fund and spearheaded by paediatrician Neville Butler, the idea was to monitor and chart the development of 17,415 children born in England, Scotland and Wales between the 3rd to the 9th of March that year. It might have been a rather boring study had none of the children surveyed gone on to obtain any kind of celebrity status. No cause for concern there, though. Other famous names born that very week include comedy actors Rick Mayall and Miranda Richardson, and the BG that never was, Andy Gibb. So he was the other Gibb brother that wasn't in the Bee Gees. And all these people were born the very same week between the 3rd and 9th of March 1958, and a handful of them go on to become famous. Gary Newman, Rick Mayall, who, interestingly, had a few things to say in his final days, or weeks or months, whatever it was, about the incoming New World Order. He was in this film One by One, where, as part of the plot, they're revealing the very New World Order master plan that we're now all living through. And Rick Mayall seemingly...
He'd have been an interesting character to be around now.
Oh, yeah, I feel so. And he put out a few warnings. There's a piece of video footage of Rick Mayall on YouTube where he's warning people to stop watching television. Because he says, it's mind control and you don't know what's coming through that TV. And he said, I'm serious. And then he says, I might be dead by the time you see this.
Bloody hell.
Shortly after that, he turns up dead after seemingly some sort of heart attack. Anyway, that's Rick Mayall. Miranda Richardson, who was in Blackadder, she played Queen Elizabeth I. And she popped up in one of Kate Bush's videos, the video to Lily. She plays a part in that.
Obviously.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you got Gary Newman. So basically this story in soundbites is asking the question, was Gary Newman's entire career fabricated and created for him by virtue of the fact that he just happened to be born in this particular week and he just happened to be part of this study of child development? And to me, when I hear that, I just think of mind control and, other nefarious factors.
When these studies are taken out, they're not taken out just to lick the finger and hope something might happen. They're there for a reason, aren't they? They're a plan.
Well, as I say, it would be rather boring if all of the people in that child study had gone on to work in Tesco's, or B&Q. But no need to worry because many of them became celebrities.
Yeah. The guy who started Tesco's was an interesting story as well. I came across him in some research, just leading off to somewhere else anyway.
Why would it not be?
Yeah. Chris has got an interesting story. He went to see Stevie Wonder, right?
Yeah.
And he said, when we get Mark on, I've got to tell him this story.
Oh, we went to see Stevie Wonder. My mate had tickets when he played in Hyde Park. I think it was the last time he was in touring. And it was him and Lionel Richie. And I don't know how old Lionel Richie is, but he was running up and down like a blooming grasshopper. Playing piano, singing, it was like he was on something. Anyway,
Did he have his leather pants on?
And then Stevie Wonder was on, but weirdly, they had Stevie Wonder, and it was packed Hyde Park. Stevie Wonder and a DJ. So when basically Stevie Wonder was singing, and you couldn't really hear him, and it was a bit weird, and everyone was kind of going, "What? This is strange." And then they put a DJ on, so they had the DJ. It was like they had the DJ there in case Stevie Wonder flagged, basically. And I looked on the big screen, and I could see him, and it was just like that, right? Just kind of hunched over, didn't look like he was going to move. And then it was as if someone just walked up and jabbed him with something.
Comatose, what?
Yeah, he just didn't look like he was with it. And then he just brightened up and just started belting his songs out. It was very, very, very strange experience, I thought. And then I think he flagged again, and then I think it happened again, if I'm right. But everyone at the beginning was complaining. Then all of a sudden, he was full of energy. And it was just strange. And then afterwards, I think when they realised it had gone wrong, he announced and it was on the news the next day, he announced that he'd got kidney failure and he was up for a kidney transplant in October. And this was in July, August, I guess, in latest. And he announced that he was up for a kidney transplant. Now, for a kidney transplant, you need a donor. The donor's definitely got to be a friend or someone who's died. And then you get the kidney transplant. I just found it odd that he announced that he was going to have it in October. It's like he was covering for the fact that it kind of went a bit pear-shaped.
Interesting. Have you heard the one that suggests Stevie Wonder might not actually be blind.
Yeah. There's one picture of him with a watch on, and there's the one where, is it Paul McCartney knocks his microphone over and he catches it? Yeah.
I think it was the inauguration concert for Barack Obama.
That's right.
And Stevie Wonder's performing, and Paul McCartney is one of the other performers. And McCartney knocks down a mic stand, and Stevie's right there.
He grabs it
straight away. So
and also, I went back and I looked, and he's worth like 150 million. And if you're ready for a major operation, would you really be going to batting it out like that when you're worth all that? Do you really need, unless you've been forced or told to do it, do you really need to do that?
We're back to James Brown again, aren't we? And being forced to perform for the rest of his days as a condition of his contract. And Bob Dylan made comments, about how he made a deal a long time ago and he's keeping up his end of the bargain. That's why his career just goes on and on and on forever. And he's going to perform to the day he drops.
I've seen a video of Michael Jackson. I saw Dom falling over, and his legs are still dancing. Like, he's actually still doing the Michael Jackson moves. He's lying on the floor.
Wow.
And then he had that Katy Perry one where she just collapsed. They just picked her up and just carried on. I mean, you don't treat a human being like that. You wouldn't treat your worst enemy like that.
What you were saying about they seemingly injected Stevie with something to fill him full of life again. It's the sort of thing you do with a bloody racehorse, isn't it?
Yeah.
Inject him with steroids to make him run faster.
Not multi-zillionaire.
And they treat them as racehorses, commodities. That's how they see them.
Yeah.
Prince and Michael Jackson were getting jabbed with all sorts, weren't they?
Yeah.
It was well known that they were getting jabbed. Michael Jackson were painkillers.
These guys die. These guys die, and it's not known what they died of for months after. I mean, that doesn't happen, does it? You die, you have an autopsy, then they tell you what you died of.
And it's never given in any specific detail what they die of. So you'll have Whitney Houston turning up dead in a bathtub. Dolores O'Riordan of the Cranberries turns up dead in a bathtub. Prince turns up dead in a lift. And they never actually come out and say it was this condition. It's left to the general public to surmise for themselves. And the mindset that usually kicks in is, these musicians, these rock stars, they're into drugs and all kinds of debauchery and alcohol and stuff. So that's what kills them. So they can get away with it by having it put down to that. But if such huge numbers of plumbers or lorry drivers just happen to turn up dead, people will be saying, why are so many plumbers dying?
Yeah.
What happens if a load of footballers had to retire because they had myocarditis?
If many plumbers were dropping as footballers have in recent weeks, there would be a call for an investigation, but somehow they're getting away with it.
It's more important where they died than what they died of. Elvis died on a toilet, X amount died in a bath, Prince died in the lift. That seems to be more of a focal point, doesn't it?
Yeah, toilets and baths are very dangerous places to be.
Did Whitney Houston's daughter die in the bath as well?
Yeah. So Whitney Houston's daughter, Bobby Christina, who she had with Bobby Brown, was discovered unconscious in a bathtub in the same hotel suite as her mother was discovered dead in 24 hours later, the night before.
Bloody hell.
So then Whitney turns up dead the following night. The concert or the party that was going on downstairs for the Grammys continued on at the request of Clive Davis, who was Whitney's handler. He's said to have discovered her, but, he was fulfilling the role of handler. And Bobby Christina is said to have been so terrified of baths because of what happened to her mother that, according to friends, she never took another bath again. She would only take showers. So then a few years down the line, Bobby Christina turns up unresponsive, unconscious in a bath.
Right.
Go figure. And then she remained in a coma for many, many days. And then they turned the life support machine off on her mother, Whitney Houston's birthday. So, it all smacks of ritual sacrifice.
Who has that story in their family life? Like you said, they're all crazy drug taking nut jobs.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they are, but they're still getting knocked off as well.
Yeah.
Keith Richards was a crazy drug taking lunatic, but he didn't get knocked off.
Ozzy Osbourne, same way.
Yeah, Ozzy Osbourne. Yeah.
A kid I was working with, Mark, you mentioned, because he said that now there's a 21 club. He said a lot of it, music I never listened to. It's like those grime rappers or whatever. And he said now they all seem to die at 21. And he was naming one of them who even said, I probably won't make it to 22. And I've not looked into it at all. This is a younger guy than me who's into the, younger hip hop, or whatever you want to call it. And he said they all seem to be croaking at 21.
Yeah, well, I can't actually bring myself to research these genres. Trap, drill, mumble rap.
That's it, yeah.
Whenever I'm unfortunate enough to be in the vicinity of this stuff playing, and unfortunately, my 13-year-old daughter walks around the house with this garbage spewing out of her mobile phone, and whenever I hear it, I'm like diving for cover because I can't stand it. It makes me panicky and anxious. I actually
really
hate
depressed
the way it sounds. There's something going on with the sound frequencies.
I agree.
And maybe it's people of our generation because we know better music. We remember better times. We've got higher standards. But I can't
sounds really negative, and I can't even. He didn't have a rhythm, does it? There's not.
Well, it comes back to that Kane West again. That music he started that whole, I don't know, rock and whatever it is mixed up. I mean, the music's horrendous, if you ask me.
But Kanye West, when he first came out, he was producing beautiful beats.
When he first came out, it was
Jay-Z. He was a producer for Jay-Z, and many of the artists on Rockefeller Records and Diplomats, Cameron, and all that lot. And many of his beats were drawing on beautiful old soul records from back in the day. And then something happened at a certain point in his career.
Kardashians.
Well, yeah, that was
the
part
witches.
of it.
Yeah.
Well, he started making garbage. But all this stuff that's around now, what so-called hip-hop has become, I can't stand it, and I just feel like I want to take a long shower every time I hear one.
Yeah.
I just don't want to wallow in that filth and depravity.
Well, listen to that Travis Scott. I mean, it's horrific music. It's awful, isn't it?
It's horrible. It's horrible. And kids evidently love it because it's all they've known. They think the stuff we used to listen to is crusty old garbage. They'll hear Warren G Regulate or, some bloody classic from the 90s.
Even Sugar Hill Gang.
I have to say, me and my daughter watched Robots, that old animated film. I think it's got Robin Williams in it. And in that, there's a version of Get Up Off That Thing by James Brown. And I didn't even know it was in the film, to be fair. I must have gone off somewhere. And she watched it and she started singing Get Up Off That Thing by James Brown. So then I was showing her James Brown live dancing. And now she goes around singing it, even though we've now found out. It's good because at least it's good music.
With my kids, if I try and school them on some 90s R&B and hip hop or some great house record or something, they think it's as crusty as I used to think my mum's Elvis Presley records were.
Yeah,
I actually like Elvis.
But even I can look back to old music and respect that they could play an instrument, they could sing, they could hold a tune. You can actually respect some of that music.
Even music you don't like. Even music you don't like.
Yeah, even music you don't like. Genres you don't like, but. Going back to your classical music, you can respect that they can play a flute and things like that, and the music actually does something to you energetically. This stuff, a bit like the dance stuff in the 2000s, the happy hardcore. Like scraping my nails down a blackboard, that stuff. And I'm sure people listening to it used to love
techno.
It. Horrific.
Yeah.
Just no.
It started off with like Chicago house, like you said, Dom, and that kind of uplifting house music, and then it just kind of all got a bit intense, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. When I think of house music, I always think of, well, this is how it started. My dreams are broken.
Jack Master Funk.
Yeah.
But anyway, we digress again. Okay, so we call it a wrap. Or have you got anything else you want to add? Where can you buy your book, Mark?
Well, the
book usual
is available on Amazon. So for anyone that wants a quick and easy fix, you can get it on Amazon. It's available in paperback and hardback, and also there's a Kindle ebook version that you can get from Kindle Direct Publishing. But if anyone wants to get a copy direct from me, which I can sign and post out, they can drop me an email to markdevlinuk@gmail.com and I can arrange to send it out. I do want to do an audiobook version of Volume 3, and I will get round to that one day. But these things take absolutely bloody ages. I mean, I voiced Volume 1, and I started the process in summer 2018. And by the time I got it finished, it was the end of 2020. So that's how long it took me.
How long was it, Mark, when you'd finished it?
17 and a half hours.
Bloody hell.
And it's not the recording that takes the time. It's the post-production. It's taken out all the little pops and all the little glitches. And
right.
That's what takes so bloody long.
So it ends up 17 hours long, and you've probably put 30 hours into it.
3 months worth of work, yeah. So I will get round to doing Volume 3 at some point. And I have yet to voice the audiobook version of Volume 2, but I'm going to do it in reverse. Like the Beatles did with Abbey Road and Let It Be. They recorded them in the opposite order to which they were released. So I'm going to be putting out volume 3 before I put out volume 2, just because.
Yeah, but you wrote your books.
I've I've read your volume 2 twice, Mike, and I've just started volume 3, and the brilliant books.
Oh, thank you. So those books are available from me, and I'm doing a speaking tour at the moment, as I say. I've been invited to talk at a number of meetup groups and conferences over the coming weeks and months, and it looks as if they're going to go ahead. You know, I mean, when I started this whole thing, I didn't know whether all the venues would have to get shut down again, but it looks as if this tour is going to actually be able to continue. So that's ongoing. And then everything else is at my website, djmarkdevlin.com.
Every time you're on a speaking tour, I know you know Alea.
Yeah,
she couldn't. Yeah, she's from Halifax.
Oh,
so
right, okay.
I know her also, and she keeps telling me where you're going to be speaking. It's always on a weekend when we're doing something with kids or something like that. So one day we'll meet up.
Well, you know, I'm doing one in Beverley, near Hull, on a Tuesday.
Right,
on a Tuesday,
1st of February.
Right, maybe we should get ourselves out, Dom.
Yeah, I think we should. Yeah, I'd like to.
It's a school night.
Meet you. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't go to school anymore.
Me and Dom are hermits.
Yeah.
even those matches in London, I wanted to go, and I kept wanting to go, and I didn't know where to find out when they happen. I don't even know when they happen, and then I'd see afterwards, like you guys like yourself talking about it.
Did you say that's Feb 1st?
Yeah,
I'm knackered on that one. I think I'm actually in London on that one.
Well, what about Chesterfield?
Well, any of these are drivable
because I'm doing
if it's sort of midweek.
This coming Monday,
right,
just south of Sheffield there. I'm sure you know where Chesterfield is.
Yeah. Look, we'll catch up at some point, I'm sure. Yeah. It'd be nice to catch up. Yeah. And we're opening our new clinic, so you're welcome up there as well.
Oh,
at some
yeah,
point.
Thank
I know
you, yeah.
John's been up. I don't know if he's told you, John Amer, to the old one,
right,
but we're opening a new one. Chris actually came for a couple of treatments the other day.
Yeah, I did. I had a stiff neck, and he sorted my neck out.
Yeah. He had some ozone injections into his neck and ozone Tempass.
Stevie Wonder needs some of those, doesn't he?
That might be what he's had.
Not ozone.
Right then, we'll wrap up there. Otherwise, we'll be here all day.
All right.
And thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. It's been a pleasure. Bye.